Chapter 1392. Where did you learn the phrase, "so good" from? Why does it sound so familiar to me? Liu Bang looked at Gu Han with a strange expression after the space-time transformation ended. I learned it from your grandson of the 19th generation. Gu Han said lightly. My grandson of the 19th generation? Liu Bang touched his beard in confusion. Then, realization dawned on him. Are you talking about that unfilial descendant of Liu Bei? Why? How is he unfilial? Zhou Dangma suddenly interrupted curiously. Liu Bei is the only one who inherited your will and almost rebuilt the Han dynasty. How can you say that he is an unfilial descendant? From this sentence, it could be seen that Zhou Dangma was very familiar with the history of the Three Kingdoms. However, this was not surprising. After all, the theme of the Three Kingdoms was one of the most popular games in Japan. The people of Japan were no less passionate about the Three Kingdoms than the people of China. Of course, he is unfilial. If he and Sun Quan hadn't stopped Cao Cao's army at the Red Cliffs, my Han dynasty would have lasted for thousands of years, Liu Bang said indignantly. Hearing Liu Bang's words, Shangju Dangma became even more confused. Liu Bei and Sun Quan must have stopped Cao Cao's army and successfully defeated Cao Cao. That was how they ended up monopolizing Sichuan and dividing the world into three. Logically speaking, this should have been an important opportunity to extend the life of the Dark Han dynasty. How did it become a battle to stop the Dark Han dynasty? Sigh, forget it. It was thousands of years ago. I don't mind telling you. I'm not afraid of losing face. Seeing the confused expressions on Gahan and Zhou Dangma's faces, Liu Bang said with a wry smile, Actually, after I died, I already knew the end of the Dark Han dynasty through the Book of Life and Death. I also knew that Cao Cao was the grave digger of the Han dynasty. In order to protect the Han dynasty, I used all my connections and asked Siddhartha Bodhisattva, who was in charge of the operation of the underworld, to do me a small favor. What small favor? Zhou Dangma asked curiously. This was the secret history of the Three Kingdoms that no one knew about. When Cao Cao was born, wasn't it said that a yellow dragon hovered over the roof of his house and finally entered the belly of Cao Cao's mother? At this point, Liu Bang's face suddenly turned red. Wait, don't tell me that the yellow dragon is actually you, and that Cao Cao is actually your biological son. Seeing Liu Bongjing's blushing face, Gu Han instantly figured out what was going on. That's right. Cao Cao is indeed my flesh and blood. Liu Bang lowered his head and said, I made a great wish to bribe Siddhartha Bodhisattva to give me a day to return to the world of living. And on this day, I turned into a dragon and entered Cao Cao's mother's room. Cao Cao's mother was really a beauty. At this time, Gahan also knew that the last person must be Chidu Isamu, because Chidu Isamu had also returned to the normal world. If Chidu Isamu had not left the seamless corridor, then everything that he had experienced seemed to have become a fabrication. Okay, what are you going to do next is to meet these three people you mentioned. Liu Bang touched his head with a slight headache. Sigh, I didn't have any expectations of leaving this place, so it didn't matter if I had to wait another 100 years. But now, I don't even want to wait another minute. The rest of the time passed quickly. Although Gahan and the others met many Yuan Ko's, they did not meet any of their targets. 12 years passed just like that, and Guhan had stayed in the seamless corridor for 13 years. A sense of anxiety was constantly lingering among the three of them. Just like what Liu Bang had said before, as long as they did not know the way to leave, they would be able to survive even if they had to wait another 100 years. But after knowing the way to leave, every minute and second became very difficult to bear. During these 2 years, the only thing the three of them could do was to read a large number of novels. Although Guhan had the most novels with him, he didn't read the ones he brought with him. Instead, he read all the novels and books in Liu Bang's dimensional pocket. The reason was very simple. Most of the novels Liu Bang brought with him were novels from before the apocalypse, which contain a lot of culture before the apocalypse. Through these novels, Gahan could fully understand the culture that had disappeared. Just when even the novels could not satisfy their patience, the sudden appearance of a person made Gahan, who was the calmest among the three, extremely restless. Sword Immortal Hong Jun, I finally found you. Hurry up and come out. Yanjing City is finished, and Sword Immortal Shihua has died in battle. The next one is Yuzhong City. This was the first sentence the girl said to Gahan when she appeared in front of Gahan. Then, the girl fainted in front of Gahan. She fainted from hunger. Liu Bang said to Gahan after checking the girl's pulse. She fainted from hunger? How is that possible? Jojo Dangma was very puzzled after hearing this explanation. That was because there was no such thing as hunger in this world. They had lived here for 13 years, and their stomachs had never been hungry. Otherwise, given the 850 years that Liu Bang had spent here, no matter how much food he carried, he would have finished it long ago. Brother Gahan, what do you think is going on? Why did she faint from hunger? Jojo Dangma instinctively asked Guhan. Because in the past 12 years, Jojo Dangma had not learned any other skills except for one. That was, ask Gahan when you can't decide. As long as he asked Gahan about something he couldn't decide, Gahan would definitely be able to give the most appropriate solution. But what Jojo Dangma didn't expect was that when he asked Gahan this time, Gahan didn't answer. He just stood there like a statue, motionless, as if he had lost his soul. What the hell is going on? Brother Gahan, what's wrong with you? Jojo Dangma instinctively wanted to ask, but Liu Bang took his hand and said with a cautious expression, "It seems that the news just now is extremely bad news for him. It's as bad as knowing that my Han is dead. Let him adjust himself. He is a smart man, and he knows what he should do now." Oh, Jojo Dangma nodded, not fully understanding. As Liu Bang said, Gohan's petrification only lasted for 2 or 3 minutes before he returned to his normal appearance. Then, he bent down, silently took out a bottle of glucose water from his dimensional pocket, and slowly and carefully poured it into the mouth of the girl who suddenly appeared. Chapter 1393. Sword Deity Hong Jun. You are Sword Deity Hong Jun, right? After Gu Han fed the girl with the glucose water, the girl immediately jumped up from the ground and hugged Gu Han's body and asked anxiously, "I am Sword Deity Hong Jun. Why are you looking for me? And you just said that Yanjing City was breached and Sword Deity Shihua died in battle. What's going on? Tell me everything now." Gahan pressed on the girl's shoulder and asked, "Emperor Qin, Shi Huang, Ying Zheng. This is all Emperor Qin, Shi Huang, Ying Zheng's doing." Hearing Gahan's question, the girl suddenly sat on the ground and began to tell her story while sobbing. Ever since Sword Immortal Shihua became the chairman of the Sword Committee, she has been very successful in coordinating the problems between the various base cities. She has also successfully won the second and third elections. All humans have been living happily for about 15 years. But before the fourth election, Sword Deity Shihua was very close to the 10 million quarks of sword elements needed to become an Emperor Sword wielder. She was only one step away from becoming an Emperor Sword wielder. But this caused Emperor Qin, Shi Huang, Ying Zheng to be dissatisfied and afraid. He tried to challenge Sword Deity Shihua in the second and third elections, but he failed in the end. Sword Immortal Shihua's biggest crisis and flaw in her position is her identity as a celestial sword-level sword wielder. Once Sword Immortal Shihua ascends to the throne and becomes a true Emperor sword-level sword wielder, then with the power of an Emperor sword-level sword wielder, Ying Zheng will no longer have any chance of winning the election for the fourth time. Ying Zheng was not willing to fail just like that. He could only become the leader of humans by defeating Liu Shihua. But because Ying Zheng lacked a drop of Zhu Wu's blood essence, he could never become the real Zhu Wu. As for Ying Zheng, in order to become the true ancestor of sorcery, he snuck back to the Shanhai Pass and made a crazy agreement with the 12 ancestors of sorcery who were sealed by the Universal Stars Formation. He asked each of the 12 ancestors of sorcery to provide 10 drops of their blood essence to him, and he would be responsible for removing the seals. At that time, the sword bearers outside Shanhai Pass were all old sword bearers. They could not fight back against Ying Zheng's sneak attack at all. The entire Zhou Tian star battle formation collapsed in an instant, and the 12 Zhu Wu broke out of the seal and began to launch a bloody revenge on humans, besieging Yanjing City. And Ying Zheng, who had already become the ancestor of sorcery, shamelessly came back and announced that he would help and lead Yanjing City to resist the siege of the 12 ancestor of sorcery. No one knew the truth of the matter at all. When they saw that Ying Zheng was even more powerful than the ancestor of sorcery, in order to protect Yanjing City, they had no choice but to acknowledge Ying Zheng's leadership. Even Sword Immortal Xihua gave up his position as the chairman of the Sword Committee and became Ying Zheng's assistant, helping Ying Zheng defend Yanjing City. But in the end, Sword Deity Xihua still discovered the secret that Ying Zheng was actually the main culprit. But as soon as she discovered this secret, Ying Zheng also discovered that she knew this secret, so he secretly plotted against Sword Deity Xihua, and then Sword Deity Xihua completely disappeared. But Sword Deity Xihua told me that if she disappeared, I could enter the seamless corridor to find her master, Sword Deity Hongjun. Only Sword Deity Hongjun could defeat Ying Zheng and save humanity. So I desperately gathered information about the seamless corridor and finally found a way to enter the seamless corridor. That's why I came here. Sword Deity Hongjun, if you really are Sword Deity Xihua's master, then I beg you to quickly help Sword Deity Xihua take revenge and save humanity. The young girl cried. Wait, let me calm down, let me think about it. Gohan waved his hand at the young girl, trying hard to calm himself down. He went over what the young girl had just said in his mind, sorting out the sequence of events, and then asked the young girl a very important question with a cold face. Who are you? You even know that Qin Shi Huang, Ying Zheng, betrayed humanity. Who are you? And what is your identity as my disciple? My name is Lu Qingping. I am an orphan adopted by Sword Deity Xihua. The young girl lowered her head, sobbing as she replied. When I was a child, I sneaked away from home, wanting to find my brother. But I got lost on the way and was about to starve to death. It was Sword Deity Xihua who met me, gave me food, and saved me from the brink of death. So I have always been by Sword Deity Xihua's side, serving her as her personal maid. She said that I was her personal maid and that I would serve her. But in reality, Sword Deity Xihua treated me like her own daughter. If it wasn't for the fact that I was lacking in talent and only had 9 points of innate sword essence, Sword Deity Xihua said that she would definitely accept me as her disciple and continue the legacy of the Hongjun bloodline. Lu Qingping, after hearing the young girl's name, Gohan was obviously stunned for a while, then murmured to himself, Why do you have this name? I was not originally named this, but because Sword Deity Xihua saved me, I voluntarily changed my surname to hers. Lu Qingping replied. Lu Qingping, Xihua, you are indeed a good disciple of Master, but Master did not expect that Master would trick you again. A few drops of tears flashed in the corner of Gohan's eyes, and then his expression changed. He suddenly reached out his right hand to Lu Qingping and said, Just based on a few words of yours, I absolutely can't believe you. You'd better have evidence that can prove what you said, otherwise I will not believe you. I have evidence. Lu Qingping nodded repeatedly, then took out a memory card from her body and handed it to Gohan. She said, There are all kinds of video reports and literature reports about this disaster that I have collected, as well as many battle videos. These are all original videos that have not been edited. There are no traces of falsification in them. Sword Deity Xihua said that Master would definitely be able to distinguish them. Give it to me. Gohan snatched the memory card and inserted it into his personal terminal. He played it for a full 30 days before he finally finished watching all the videos. Through these videos, Gohan finally learned all the stories that had happened in the 15 years after he entered the Seamless Corridor. At the same time, he also learned that the moment Lu Qingping escaped was actually the moment when Yanjing City was captured by the 12 Zuwu. From that moment on, all the information came to an end. What happened next? What happened next? What happened after Yanjing City was captured? Gohan tried to calm his tone and asked. Ying Zheng had always been suspicious of me. If I hadn't followed the instructions of sword deity Xihua and lived in the hall of the sword committee headquarters, I'm afraid Ingzheng would have killed me long ago. When Yinjing City was captured, Ingzheng was busy organizing people to escape and had no time to care about me. I took the opportunity to escape from Yinjing City, found the entrance to the seamless corridor, and met you, sword deity Hongjun. And when I was on the run, I heard that all the fugitives were brought to Yuzhong City and used the power of Yuzhong City to defend itself. So if everything went well with Ingzheng, I'm afraid he has already organized a new defense in Yuzhong City. Lu Qingping said, "This guy, not only did he harm Yinjing City, he also wants to harm my Yuzhong City." Gohan clenched his fists, and the anger in his heart had obviously reached the extreme. But after the extreme anger, some doubts about Lu Qingping surged into his heart. Wait, if you have been living in the Sword Committee headquarters, then why didn't you tell the truth to the others, and tell them that Ingzheng is the culprit of all this? Gohan asked with a frown. It was Sword Deity Xihua. Sword Deity Xihua didn't allow me to tell the others. Lu Qingping raised her head and cried. Why? Why did Xihua stop you from telling the truth? Gohan asked further. That's simple. Now, this Ingzheng is the only hope for all human beings. Even if these humans know that Ingzheng is the culprit behind all these disasters, in order to stay under Ingzheng's protection, they will only play dumb and pretend to be ignorant. When the time comes, they will kill this poor kid who told the truth. This is the nature of human beings. Liu Bang suddenly interjected. He made a perfect analysis from the perspective of human nature and gave a rather reliable answer. It's not like that. The truth is because sword deity Xihua never wanted to tell the truth. Then Lu Qingping said something that made Liu Bang feel like he was slapped in the face. Sword Immortal Xihua said that Ingzheng's heart is still on the side of mankind. Otherwise, he would not have done his best to help mankind defend the city. It's just that Ingzheng was blinded by power, and that's why he did such a thing. Of course, Ingzheng deserves to die, but now is not the time for Ingzheng to die. Humans need Ingzheng's power, so Sword Deity Xihua decided to hide this secret until the crisis of humans is over, then consider the next step. Almost. Both of them want to borrow the power of Ingzheng. Liu Bang said, but this Lu Xihua is still a little too kind. She has no idea how vicious Ingzheng is, and she still wants to use his power. At that time, I just wanted to live a peaceful life. If it weren't for Ingzheng, I wouldn't have any interest in resisting him. Now that I think about it, that guy was really arrogant when he was sitting in the dragon carriage. I was lucky enough to make eye contact with him, but all I saw in his eyes was contempt and disdain. Who would have thought that it would be me, a worthless hooligan, who ended him in the end? Liu Bang couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 1394. I have one last question. Gohan agreed with Lu Qingping's explanation for the previous question. He then asked, You are just a mortal. How on earth did you escape from Yinjing City, which was surrounded by the Wu people? And how on earth did you get into the seamless corridor through the dimensional space? I'm afraid this is not something a mortal like you can do. This is what it told me. Lu Qingping hurriedly took out a letter from her body and handed it to Gohan. Gohan took the letter and found that it was written in a very graceful handwriting. Go all the way north, according to the directions on this map. Enter Guanhui City, arrive at Guanhui Amusement Park, and enter the seamless corridor through the tunnel of the castle in Guanhui Amusement Park to find sword deity Hongjun. What? Seeing this letter, Gohan's expression suddenly changed. He suddenly remembered that he had heard Chidu Isuzu say that the reason she had entered the world of the seamless corridor was because she had accidentally dug the entrance to the seamless corridor when she was digging soil in Guanhui Amusement Park. That was why she had fallen into the seamless corridor. Jojo Doma, who was next to him, had also mistakenly entered the seamless corridor when passing through a cave in North Korea. The experience of these two people proved that there was indeed an entrance to the seamless corridor in Guanhui Amusement Park. He did not expect that this letter would actually guide Lu Qingping to enter the seamless corridor through this route. This route did not require her to pass through the dangerous dimensional space. As long as she did not meet Yuan Ko along the way, she could indeed enter the seamless corridor safely. But here came a problem. Guanghui Amusement Park was a hidden area outside of the human world. In the entire human world, perhaps only 3 people, Gahan, Liunian Ling, and Ashima, knew about it. But among the 3 of them, except for Gahan, no one knew that there was an entrance to the seamless corridor in Guanghui Amusement Park. As for Guhan himself, he had only found out about this after entering the seamless corridor. In other words, there was no one in the human world who knew about this secret. Then who was it that had written this note and given it to Lu Qingping? A very handsome but cold-looking uncle gave it to me. When Gahan threw this question to Lu Qingping answered. He said that this note was left by sword immortal Hong Jun. He also said that because the Wu people were all killed, there were not many subordinates of 12 Zhu Wu. At the same time, he chased the fleeing crowd to the south. On the contrary, there were no Wu people in the northeast direction where 12 Zhu Wu came from. Moreover, the 12 Grand Sorcerers have scared off all the Yuanko on their way here. As long as I'm lucky enough, I might be able to reach my destination safely if I keep driving the hovercraft and don't stop to rest. As this uncle said, I didn't encounter any danger along the way and found you. Sword Celestial Hong Jun, very handsome, an uncle who looks cold. Hearing Lu Qingping's words, Gahan felt particularly curious about this uncle who suddenly appeared. Gahan was 100% sure that it was impossible for him to leave such a note for anyone. Moreover, looking at the graceful handwriting on the letter, it was impossible for this handwriting to be written by Gahan. This was clearly the handwriting of a gentle girl. So the identity of this uncle became very important. Where did he get such a note and give it to Lu Qingping at the right time? Could there be some kind of conspiracy behind this? Or was this all part of Ing Zheng's plan? Gahan thought about many things. His thoughts became more and more erratic. He felt that there were all kinds of conspiracies, until Gahan's hands accidentally touched the celestial cactus at his waist. Gahan suddenly came to a realization. Could this handsome, cold-looking uncle be Xian? Look, is this the uncle you were talking about? Gahan used his personal terminal to project a picture of Xian. This picture was taken secretly by Gahan when Xian wasn't paying attention, so the picture wasn't very clear. Parts of the picture were still very blurry. But it was such a picture that Lu Qingping recognized it immediately. She shouted, "It's this uncle. It's him who gave me this note." I Ching. Oh, I Ching. So this matter was also part of your plan. Seeing Lu Qingping's reaction, Gahan smiled bitterly in his heart. If this person was really Xian, then there was a reasonable explanation. This graceful handwriting on the note must have been left behind by I Ching. Since I Ching could leave celestial cactus to Xian, it wouldn't be a problem for him to leave behind a note like this. I Ching must have already known about the shocking event that happened today. She probably knew about Lu Qingping's existence. That's why she left this note in advance for Xian to pass it to Lu Qingping, so that Lu Qingping could enter the seamless corridor to find him. I Ching. Oh, I Ching. Why did you have to go through all this trouble? Why didn't you just tell me about it? That way, I could have killed that Ing Zheng fellow before entering the seamless corridor. I wouldn't have been able to get any information about the Xuanwu tortoise from him. I Ching. Oh, I Ching. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you have to watch my disciple die? Gahan's heart was filled with endless anger. His anger was directed at I Ching. Since I Ching had already arranged everything 800 years ago, she could have told him everything that had happened today. Then he would never have entered the seamless corridor. He would have been completely ignorant of what had happened in the outside world. He wouldn't have even known that his most beloved disciple had been killed. This was all I Ching's fault. But this anger was only temporary. After the anger subsided, rationality returned. Gahan's anger towards I Ching slowly subsided. To I Ching, maintaining the accuracy of history was her true goal. If he had entered the seamless corridor in the real world, then I Ching wouldn't have told him all this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have followed the original course of history. In the end, the entire history of the world might collapse. No one knew what would happen after the history of the world changed. Would a new side world be carved out, or would the entire timeline collapse and the universe be destroyed. No one knew what the consequences would be. I Ching naturally wouldn't take such a risk. Gahan understood I Ching's thoughts. The anger in his heart naturally dissipated. And at the same time, Gahan also remembered that in Lu Qingping's words, Lu Shihua seemed to have only gone missing. Thinking of this, Guhan's heart was once again ignited with a little hope. Let me ask you, is Shihua really dead? Why did you change your statement and say that she's missing? Gahan asked excitedly. Because Ying Zheng released a video of Sword Immortal Shihua's death. Sword Immortal Shihua was eaten by ancestral Magus Divine Jiang. Ying Zheng was the only one who saw this part of the battle, so there was no second witness. However, the video was verified to be real and not falsified. So the people of Yanjing City think that Sword Immortal Shihua is dead, but there is no corpse left. But I'm more willing to believe that Sword Immortal Shihua is missing. It's very likely that she's still alive. No, Shihua must still be alive. I have a feeling that she won't die. Guhan stood up again, and a huge invisible force filled the entire venue. Lu Qingping, Lu Bang, and Zhou Dangma couldn't help but feel a huge sense of suffocation, as if their whole bodies were about to be strangled to death. Just when the three of them were about to be completely suffocated, Guhan withdrew his force in an instant, like an ordinary person without any power. Mr. Lu Bang, Mr. Zhou Dangma, I think it's necessary to change my plan. Let's not deliberately gather 6 people anymore. Once we meet 2 more living people, we'll go directly to the library, find the librarian, and leave this seamless corridor. Gahan said lightly. I say, Gahan, don't you want to find your Miss Artoria? Didn't you say that the fundamental purpose of your coming to this world is to find her and bring her back? Why did you change your mind now? Don't you want to bring her back? Didn't you come here for nothing? Lu Bang mumbled. It doesn't matter. Artoria is just a one-sided joke to me. The things I've done for her are already ridiculous enough. Even my apprentice's life and death are unknown now. I have to return to the real world immediately, kill Ying Zheng, and then kill Tuelzu. Otherwise, all humans will be extinct. Even if I find Artoria, what's the point? Gahan muttered to himself. At this moment, Gahan suddenly felt that he was a complete fool. They had only met once in a dungeon, and they hadn't even met in real life. Yet, he had fallen in love with Artoria just like that, and he had even risked his life to enter the seamless corridor for her. All of this sounded like a ridiculous joke. If it weren't for the huge crisis that humanity was facing this time, Gahan's sweet dream might have continued. Now that his sweet dream had been mercilessly shattered, it was time to wake up from it and save and protect what truly belonged to him. Come on, I don't care if you bring Artoria or not, just bring me along. Lu Bang shrugged and said, I don't care, I must find Misaka Mikoto, or I will never leave. Zhou Dangma, who was next to him, was not so easy to talk to. If he did not find Misaka Mikoto, he would obviously not leave. All right, when we find Miss Misaka Mikoto, we'll leave. Gahan nodded and said straightforwardly. Zhou Dangma also nodded happily. However, what Zhou Dangma did not know was that at this time, Gahan had already made up his mind. Once he gathered 6 people, he would immediately control Zhou Dangma. After all, he only needed to use his right hand. It was not a difficult task for Gahan. Chapter 1395. Gahan initially thought that it would take a long time before he could meet Misaka Mikoto again. However, to his surprise, Gahan and the others managed to meet Misaka Mikoto after just one day. Mikoto, great, I finally found you. The moment he saw Misaka Mikoto, Zhou Dangma rushed forward and hugged Misaka Mikoto excitedly. Phew, it seems like things are going much smoother than we expected. Lu Bang's face was also filled with excitement. Misaka Mikoto's appearance meant that the last obstacle that prevented them from leaving had finally been removed. As long as they could find one more person, they could finally leave this damn place. Zhou Dangma and Misaka Mikoto had not seen each other for a long time. Naturally, the two of them had a lot to talk about. After whispering to each other intimately, Zhou Dangma walked over to Gahan and expressed that he hoped that there would be a certain distance between them, so that they could have some privacy, so that the two of them could talk. Both Guhan and Liu Bang expressed their understanding, so they let the two young couples, who had just reunited, chat in low voices more than 200 meters away from them. Due to the distance, not only could the others not hear what the two of them were saying, but they could not even see their expressions clearly. However, what the crowd did not expect was that after 10 minutes, Jujo Dangma and Misaka Mikoto seemed to be quarreling. The two of them seemed to be arguing about something. "Sai, it's good to be young. We've just met, and we already have the energy to quarrel again. I don't even have the energy to quarrel with that crazy woman of mine," Liu Bang lamented. "By the way, it's taboo for a couple to quarrel is for outsiders to interfere. Let the couple quarrel among themselves, and they'll stop after a while. However, once an outsider interferes, it'll be fun. After all, they don't want to admit their mistakes in front of outsiders. They only want the other party to admit their mistakes. The result is that the quarrel will only get worse and worse. In the end, both parties will be finished. That's why the two of us shouldn't get involved. Try to give them more time to quarrel. We'll just watch from the side," Liu Bang said to Gahan with a smile. Gahan also nodded. The truth was just like what Liu Bang said. Usually, when a couple quarreled more and more, it was because of the intervention of outsiders. Therefore, the best way to deal with it was just like what Liu Bang said, to watch quietly from the side. As time passed, the color of the entire seamless corridor began to change again. Guhan immediately said to Liu Bang and the others, "It seems that we can't give this couple any more time. Let's go find them immediately." Liu Bang and Liu Qingping naturally nodded. Hence, Guhan picked up Liu Qingping, who was running very slowly, and began to run toward Jujo Dangma and Misaka Mikoto, who were 200 meters away. He wanted to grab Jujo Dangma's right hand before time and space changed. However, at that moment, something that Guhan never expected happened. Misaka Mikoto suddenly gave Guhan a fierce look. Then, a coin that contained a huge amount of electromagnetic power, which was Misaka Mikoto's ultimate skill, the super electromagnetic gun, shot toward Guhan, Liu Bang, and Liu Qingping. Guhan could ignore the super electromagnetic gun's attack, and so could Liu Bang. However, Liu Qingping, who was in Guhan's arms, could never do that. Under the attack of the super electromagnetic gun, if Guhan did not protect Liu Qingping, she would definitely die. However, if Guhan protected Liu Qingping, it was very likely that Guhan would lose Jujo Dangma's fantasy killer, and everyone would have to be separated once again. "Master Sword Immortal Hongjun, don't worry about me. It's more important to protect Jujo Dangma and leave this place to avenge Mother Shihua," Liu Qingping said without hesitation. Liu Qingping knew very well that once she lost Guhan's protection, an ordinary person like her could only die. **imminent. At that time, the super electromagnetic gun was close to Guhan. As the seamless corridor was too narrow, Guhan did not even have the space to dodge. He could either stop and protect Liu Qingping or give up on her. Those were his two choices. In the end, Guhan stopped and then pulled Liu Qingping into his arms. At the same time, he faced Misaka Mikoto's super electromagnetic gun with his back. "Master Sword Immortal Hongjun." Liu Qingping looked at Guhan with tears in her eyes. After all the electricity had dissipated, whether it was Jujo Dangma, Misaka Mikoto, Liu Bang, or Liu Qingping, everyone had left Guhan. Once again, Guhan stood alone in the seamless corridor. It was quiet and there was no one around. What a joke. I can't believe that I, Guhan, would be tricked like this. What's more, the person who tricked me was Misaka Mikoto. After a moment of silence, Guhan suddenly laughed at himself helplessly. In fact, when Jujo Dangma and Misaka Mikoto deliberately stayed 200 meters away from him, Guhan had already noticed that something was amiss. There was no need for them to be so far apart. If they were more than 50 meters apart, it would be difficult for outsiders to hear what they were arguing about. Two true lovers who hadn't seen each other for more than a few years were bound to have countless sweet words to say after seeing each other. Even if there was any hidden conflict, it would take a few days or even more than 10 days for it to ferment. It was already very abnormal for them to quarrel as soon as they saw each other, and for them to quarrel for a full 10 to 20 minutes without stopping was already very unusual. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Gahan not to notice these two obvious points. It could be because Gahan was worried about the situation on Earth, but it was because Misaka Mikoto and Guhan's relationship was too good. Therefore, Gahan did not suspect Misaka Mikoto at all. He did not think that Misaka Mikoto would suddenly attack him and forcibly take Jujo Dangma away from his control. Now that he thought about it, the relationship between him and Misaka Mikoto was completely established after they left the seamless corridor. In fact, Gahan and Misaka Mikoto did not have a good relationship. It was very normal for Misaka Mikoto to suddenly attack him. However, what Gahan could not understand was that if Misaka Mikoto had a grudge against him in the seamless corridor, why was she still so close to him in real life? There was no possibility of it being an act because Gahan was 100% sure that Misaka Mikoto was a woman who could not hide her emotions. In real life, the relationship between him and Misaka Mikoto was real and not fake. Could it be that Misaka Mikoto had lost her memory before? After thinking about it carefully, Gahan became even more afraid. That was because Gahan knew that Misaka Mikoto, Jujo Dangma, and Chidu Isuzu had successfully escaped from the seamless corridor and returned to the real world. Therefore, Gahan was very confident that as long as he followed Jujo Dangma, he would definitely be able to leave this place. However, Gahan had neglected one point. Gahan could never be sure if he had left the seamless corridor. Now that Jujo Dangma and Misaka Mikoto had left at the same time, if the two of them were to meet Liu Bang again, would he not be left in the seamless corridor forever? These sudden events had completely disrupted Gahan's plan. The loss of two important people, Jujo Dangma and Liu Bang, made Gahan completely lose his way to find a way out. Therefore, at this moment, Gahan had to calm himself down and think of a way to solve the current problem. The most important thing is to find the library and the librarian's location that Liu Bang mentioned. Liu Bang is a cunning guy. Because he's afraid that he'll lose his value, he refused to tell me how to find the library and the librarian. I remember glancing at Liu Bang at the last moment of time and space. Liu Bang did not hold Jujo Dangma's right hand, so Liu Bang should be in a state of separation now. However, Jujo Dangma took the initiative to extend a finger to Liu Bang, which means that Jujo Dangma welcomes Liu Bang. Their behavior just now was only targeted at me. But why? Why would Jujo Dangma target me like this? No, it's not that Jujo Dangma is targeting me. We've been together for the past few years, and the three of us have formed a relatively deep friendship. With Jujo Dangma's personality, he would never abandon me. Therefore, the only person who can change Jujo Dangma's mind is Misaka Mikoto. It must be Misaka Mikoto who wants to abandon me. But why would she do that? I've only met Misaka Mikoto once in this world, and we had a pretty good chat. Of course, Misaka Mikoto would not target me. She must have experienced something to treat me this way. But what could it be? What the hell happened? Forget it. Let's not think about it. The most important thing now is to find Liu Bang. I must find Liu Bang before Jujo Dangma. Otherwise, with Liu Bang's personality, he'll definitely be bribed by Jujo Dangma's right hand and abandon me completely. If that happens, I'll never be able to find the location of the library. As for gathering the 6 people, I'll have to give up on that for now. As long as I can reach the library, find the librarian, and get more information about this world from the librarian, I might be able to find a solution to this problem. Gahan thought to himself. His future path gradually became clearer, and finding Liu Bang became the most important thing in the future. Fleeting Maple had to race against Jujo Dangma and the others to meet Liu Bang first. What Gahan didn't expect was that he didn't meet Liu Bang first. Instead, he met the real target of his coming here. Chapter 1396. Artoria. After another shift in space-time, Gahan suddenly saw an armored person lying on the floor of the seamless corridor. Gahan recognized her at a glance. This girl was the reason why he had entered the seamless corridor, Artoria. She's actually bleeding. She's actually suffered such a serious injury. What surprised Gahan even more was that Artoria was in a seriously injured state. There were more than 70 wounds all over her body that were constantly bleeding. The most serious wound came from Artoria's abdomen. There was a fist-sized hole there, and her internal organs were constantly flowing out of the wound. Even worse, Gohan could feel that Artoria's vitality was constantly flowing out. At the same time, he could no longer find any other strength in her body. Right now, Artoria was as weak as an ordinary girl. If he didn't find a way to treat the wounds in Artoria's body, she would definitely die. At most, in 1 or 2 hours, she would die in front of Gohan. I have to save her, Gohan said through gritted teeth. But Gohan couldn't think of a good way to save her. Although Gohan had life-saving artifacts like the medical pod and Imperial blood on him, the problem was that these artifacts were meant for humans and couldn't be used on Artoria. As long as the medical pod detected that Artoria wasn't human, it would immediately stop working. It definitely wouldn't save Yuan Ko. The Imperial blood was a life-saving medicine for humans, but for Yuan Ko, it was undoubtedly a murderous poison. In Artoria's current state, a single drop of Imperial blood would probably immediately kill her. And the ordinary medicine that Gahan had on him wouldn't be effective on Artoria either, because Artoria was in Yuan Ko's body. The moment the medicine came into contact with Artoria's body, it would probably pass through her body. Unless Artoria could wake up and inject dimensional energy into these medicines would only work on Artoria. This was something only Yuan Ko could do, and it was also the fundamental reason why Yuan Ko could use various items on Earth. This was something that even a mouse-level Yuan Ko could do. However, it was absolutely impossible for a human. Even if Gohan was an Emperor Sword wielder, it was impossible for him to imbue items with dimensional energy. As the blood in Artoria's body continued to flow out, her face became paler and paler, and her vitality was diminishing. Gahan could not think of any way to save Artoria. He began to feel anxious. And to make matters worse, it was almost time for the next dimensional shift, and Gohan was about to be separated from Artoria. And once they separated, unless Artoria was able to receive treatment from others, she would most likely die in the seamless corridor. What should we do? What should I do? Gohan kept thinking, but as the saying goes, concern makes one confused. The more concerned he was, the worse his brain worked. He could not think of any way to save Artoria. He could only keep flipping through his dimensional pocket to see if he could find anything in it that could save Artoria. Of course, this would not have any effect. As time passed, the colors in the seamless corridor began to change again. This was a sign that the dimensional shift was about to occur again. Damn it! Seeing this, Gohan could not help but clench the dimensional pocket in his hand. But at this moment, a flash of inspiration flashed in Gohan's mind. Gohan's eyes instantly brightened. His palm touched Artoria's body slightly, and Artoria's body disappeared in front of Gohan. What was going on? Could it be that the dimensional shift had already occurred, and Artoria had already left Gohan? That did not seem to be the case, because at this time, the colors of the seamless corridor were still changing. After a few seconds, the entire seamless corridor became quiet again. That's great. Artoria, she's still in my dimensional pocket. Gohan's mind immediately entered his dimensional pocket. When he found that Artoria was still in the dimensional pocket, he finally let out a long sigh of relief. That's great. I didn't expect to find such an unexpected discovery. It seems that playing the role of Numa is no longer of any use. Gohan said happily as he looked at Artoria in the dimensional pocket. Since Artoria could avoid the dimensional shift of the seamless corridor by staying in the dimensional pocket, then the other Yuan Ko could do the same. Gohan only needed to put the other 4 Yuan Kos in his dimensional pocket, and then Gohan would be able to form a team of 6, find the librarian, and leave the seamless corridor. This was definitely a pleasant surprise that Gohan did not expect. Such a crucial problem had been solved just like that. But such joy was quickly tossed aside by Gohan, because the most important thing at the moment was how to treat Artoria in the dimensional pocket. Although the dimensional pocket could guarantee that the food placed in it would not go bad, it could not guarantee that Yuan Ko, who was living in it, would maintain his original state. If he did not hurry up and treat her, Artoria would still die. With this thought in mind, Gohan immediately prepared to release Artoria's body from the dimensional pocket. But what happened next completely changed Gohan's mind. Because Gohan had put Artoria's body into the dimensional pocket in a hurry, he did not carefully arrange the storage location. So Artoria was directly thrown on top of a large pile of instant noodles. The instant noodles were naturally squashed under Artoria's body, and the entire instant noodle box was crushed. This seemed to be an extremely normal and not surprising thing, but it once again ignited Gohan's inspiration. This was because Gohan discovered that in his dimensional pocket, Yuan-Ko could actually come into direct contact with items that did not contain dimensional energy. Why was that? The reason seemed to be easy to guess. It was probably because the dimensional pocket was also a dimensional space, so the dimensional energy naturally surrounded these items, so these items could naturally come into contact with Artoria. If that was the case, could all kinds of treatment drugs also treat Artoria? With this thought in mind, Gohan immediately became excited. He began to search for all kinds of ordinary drugs in his dimensional pocket, hoping to use these ordinary drugs to treat Artoria. At first, Gohan's goal was something like nanomachines. These nanomachines were equivalent to a miniaturized version of a medical pod. They could spontaneously heal and repair injuries in the body. Even injuries like a piercing wound to the chest could be easily healed. But Gohan soon discovered that things like nanomachines could not be used. Similarly, because she was in the dimensional pocket, all human creations had basically lost their ability to move, including the nanomachines. Even if they were released, they could only stay motionless on the spot. They could not operate normally like robots and heal Artoria's injuries. It was the same with the drugs. All the drugs had lost their activity, and unless they were taken out of the dimensional pocket, they could not play their original role at all. But once they were taken out of the dimensional pocket, they would return to the strange cycle where the drugs could not come into contact with Artoria's body. The only fortunate thing was that Artoria's body in the dimensional pocket had also entered a dormant state. The blood no longer flowed out, and her injuries would no longer worsen. If Artoria was kept in the dimensional pocket, there would be no need to worry about her life being in danger for a short period of time. But once she was taken out of the dimensional pocket, Artoria's body would probably worsen again. There was no other way. Forget it. Let's move Artoria out of the food first. Gohan sighed and began to use his mind to move Artoria's body away from the large pile of food. A heavily injured person lying in a large pile of food for others to eat looked disgusting no matter how one looked at it. But this was also the only way to use items in the dimensional pocket. Only Gohan's mind could control the movement of items in the dimensional pocket. At this moment, an idea flashed in Gohan's mind again. The nanomachines could not move on their own in the dimensional pocket. If he used his mind to control these nanomachines, would he be able to treat Artoria's wounds? Thinking of this, Gohan immediately opened a nanomachines capsule. He used his mind alone to control a nanomachine from the hundreds of thousands of nanomachines in the capsule and moved it to Artoria's wound. At the same time, he tried to use his mind to order the nanomachines to repair and recover the wound. To be honest, nanomachines were very small things. Using one's mind to control such a small thing was like using chopsticks to pick up a peanut or something 100 times smaller than a peanut. The difficulty was off the charts. Just controlling a nanomachine made Gohan feel a little dejected. Although Gohan was injured, the nanomachines were not working properly. They were just moving aimlessly on the wound, and no one knew what they were doing. I understand. It must be because the command to repair the wound is too complicated. If the core chip of the nanomachines isn't activated, they won't be able to understand the command. But in the dimensional pocket, the core chip can't be activated. Gohan thought with a headache. It was not easy to think of a way to treat Artoria, but it seemed to have been abandoned just like that. Wait, what if I manually control the Nanamakine's mechanical arm to move the cells to repair the wound? This idea suddenly popped up in Gohan's mind. He then tried to directly control the Nanamakine's mechanical arm. As a result, The nanomachines finally worked normally this time and correctly repaired a cell. Very good. As long as the cells are repaired one by one, these wounds will be repaired sooner or later. A smile finally appeared on Gahan's face. He had finally found a way to treat Artoria, but this method seemed so unreliable. Even a small wound made by a blade would require as many as 30 million cells to be repaired. If these were to be repaired one by one, perhaps even 1,000 years would not be enough to repair all of them. This was simply a fantasy story, something that even a fantasy story wouldn't dare to imagine. Chapter 1397. Repairing tens of millions of cells sounded like a fantasy, but Gohan actually planned to do it. Gohan used his mind to grab 100 nanomachines at the same time and place them on Artoria's wounds. Obviously, Gohan planned to control 100 nanomachines at the same time to repair Artoria's wounds. It sounded very simple, but in reality, it almost cost Gohan his life. The moment he started controlling 100 nanomachines at the same time, Gohan felt as if his brain was about to explode. It felt like a kindergarten teacher trying to control 100 children running around on the road at the same time so that they wouldn't be hit by cars. Just the thought of it was enough to drive anyone crazy. What was even more frightening was that Gohan had to divide his mind into 100 parts in order to control these nanomachines at the same time. This was on the same level of difficulty as schizophrenia. But in any case, Gohan was still a talented guy. After an hour or two of experimentation, Gohan was finally able to divide his mind into 100 parts and control the nanomachines separately. According to the instructions on the nanomachines capsule, a capsule with 200,000 nanomachines would take 30 minutes to repair a wound caused by an ordinary knife wound. Compared to normal medicine, this was a very fast speed. So if this speed was reduced proportionally, when 100 nanomachines worked at the same time, it would probably take 1,000 hours to repair a wound caused by an ordinary knife wound. In other words, it would take 42 days without rest. At this time, there were hundreds of wounds on Artoria's body, and there was even a huge and terrifying penetrating wound. In other words, Gohan would need at least 10,000 days to heal Artoria, which was about 30 years. This was a time that Gohan absolutely could not accept, so after fully considering the upper limit of what his mind could withstand, he grabbed another 100 nanomachines, and, at the same time, divided his mind into 200 parts and controlled the 200 different nanomachines to work. And this rash action almost caused Gohan to faint in the seamless corridor. In the end, Gohan relied on his strong mind to hold on. Although the pain of dividing his mind into 200 parts almost made Gohan want to commit suicide, he persevered in the end. As time passed, the pain lessened, and he became more and more proficient in controlling the nanomachines. In the end, Gohan felt that his brain had become like a computer, and he could perfectly control each nanomachine to perform different actions. Gohan could even walk in the seamless corridor while controlling the surgery in the dimensional pocket. At this time, it had been 30 days since Gohan met Artoria. In these 30 days, Gohan met a few more Yuankos, but none of them was the person that Gohan wanted to meet. Therefore, Gohan maintained a state of indifference throughout the whole process, which made those Yuankos who wanted to trade novels extremely unhappy. On the 30th day, after feeling that he could perfectly control 200 nanomachines, Gohan pulled another 200 nanomachines at once, bringing the total number of nanomachines to 400. Of course, Gohan also needed to divide his mind into 400 parts to control these nanomachines. This was undoubtedly an extremely painful experience for Gohan. Once again, Gohan experienced the pain of wanting to commit suicide. Fortunately, the recovery time this time was shorter than the previous time. After about 25 days or so, Gohan could perfectly control the 400 nanomachines. At this time, the first wound on Artoria's body had been completely healed. The wound on the back of Artoria's hand was extremely horrifying. Even the bright red flesh had been turned inside out. With the hard work of the 400 nanomachines, the wound was finally healed, and the skin returned to its original smooth and beautiful state. But at this time, Gohan could not relax because there were still more than 100 wounds waiting for him. So, Gohan immediately transferred all the previous 400 nanomachines to the new wound. At the same time, he transferred another 400 new nanomachines to form a nanomachine army of 800 people. Similarly, Gohan once again had to experience the pain of his mind being divided again. But what Gohan did not expect was that during this separation, a consciousness suddenly woke up in the dimensional space. Where am I? Have I returned to my hometown? Have I returned to the throne of heroes? Artoria woke up from the chaos. Her mind instinctively wanted to control her body, but she found that her body had become extremely weak and seemed to be confined to this space by something. She could not move at all, and it felt like every cell in her body was tied up. Although the space in the dimensional pocket could imprison Yuan Ko's body, it could not imprison Yuan Ko's mind. So at this time, although Artoria's body could not move, the awakened Artoria's mind was free. She could still think and use her mind to perceive. Artoria could not control her body, and, of course, she could not control her eyes to open, but this was not too big of a problem. As a peak universe rank Yuan Ko, it was very easy for him to use his mind to perceive the world, so Artoria immediately prepared to break free from her body and use her mind to perceive the world. But the moment Artoria's mind broke free from her body, an intense pain attacked her mind from all directions. This pain, which was like being attacked by heaven and earth, made Artoria's mind shrink back in her body in an instant, and she fainted again. After an unknown amount of time, Artoria's mind woke up again. At this time, she did not dare to rashly let her mind leave her body again. She could only think curiously in her heart, wondering why such a strange thing would happen. Before this, Artoria's mind had left her body countless times, but she had never felt such intense pain like this. This pain seemed to be imposed on her mind by the whole world, as if it was tearing her entire soul apart. But it was not the same thing to stay in her body forever. After hesitating for a while, Artoria tried to let her mind leave her body again. As expected, Artoria was once again pushed back in her body by the pain and fainted. But after Artoria woke up again, she did not become more desperate than the last time, because Artoria found that the pain she felt this time was lighter than the pain she felt when she left her body. Could it be that with the passage of time, the pain would lessen? With such doubts in mind, Artoria waited for a long time before she let her mind leave her body for the third time. Although she still fainted from the pain the third time, Artoria was able to confirm her guess after she woke up. The pain would indeed continue to lessen. So Artoria continued such experiments. When her mind left her body for the fifth time, although she would still be pushed back in her body by the pain, she was no longer in a coma. And when Artoria's mind left her body for the ninth time, her mind could already exist in the outside world for about 10 seconds, and at the same time, she could see the general situation of the space she was in. Artoria found herself in a huge warehouse. There were all kinds of daily necessities and food in all directions. The variety of daily necessities and food was like a huge shopping mall. When Artoria's consciousness left her body for the 15th time, it could already exist in this space for about 3 minutes. At this time, Artoria could already sense that there were countless tiny creatures working on a wound on her body that could not be seen with the naked eye. She could only sense them with her consciousness. Her wound was healing rapidly with the work of these small creatures, gradually returning to its original appearance. Could it be that someone is saving me? Such a thought suddenly popped up in Artoria's mind, and in the next second, a thought was directly sent into Artoria's mind. Hello, it seems that you have finally completely awakened. Artoria instantly understood the meaning of this thought, and at the same time, she could feel a sense of gentleness and love. This was the greatest benefit of mental communication. In addition to being able to send her own words into the mind of the other party, she could also send her most sincere feelings from the bottom of her heart. Hello, where am I? What's the matter with me? Did you save me? Artoria threw a series of questions, and the other party quickly gave her answers. Artoria finally understood what had happened. It turned out that the other party found her seriously injured in the seamless corridor. Then, she found out that the dimensional pocket could temporarily freeze her body's injuries. So she put her body in the dimensional pocket to recover. Artoria had some understanding of the dimensional pocket, and she knew that the other party was probably not lying. She was indeed in the other party's dimensional pocket. But there was one thing that Artoria did not like. Because this way, her life was in the hands of the other party. If the other party wanted her dead, she would not even have the slightest strength to resist. But since his will is so gentle, he won't harm me, right? Artoria pondered. Chapter 1398. What? You're saying that in order to save me, you actually divided your consciousness into 800 parts and controlled 800 nanomachines at the same time. After about a day of interaction and communication, Artoria had completely familiarized herself with the owner of this consciousness. She knew that the other party's name was Gahan, a human, and a sword wielder at the immortal sword tier. She also knew that she was now in the seamless corridor, a world where time and space were distorted. In order to ensure that he could save her and not be separated from her, Gahan had to put her in the dimensional pocket. At the same time, because of the direct communication between their minds, every time Artoria spoke to Gahan, she would feel the gentleness and love from Gahan's consciousness. Therefore, although they had only been together for a day, Artoria felt that she and Gahan had become good friends for more than a decade. Even the Ard Wolf, who had left a deep impression on her, had gradually become vague and indistinct. Vaguely, Artoria could even feel some feelings beyond that of friends, especially when Artoria knew that in order to treat her, Gahan had to divide his consciousness into 800 parts. That is to say, in fact, your consciousness is distributed throughout the entire dimensional pocket, and all the pain I felt before actually came from the pain in your consciousness. Artoria thought to herself, extremely touched. She had only come into contact with a little of this pain, and she had directly fainted. She could imagine how much pain Gahan had to bear, and all this pain was for the sake of treating her. How could Artoria not be touched? This is nothing. After all, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have come here. The other party replied gently. What? You came here for me? What's going on? Artoria immediately became curious. Because of the direct communication between their minds, it was easier for Artoria to distinguish the various emotions contained in this sentence. She also knew that this was definitely the truth and not a hypocritical lie, because this was completely from the true feelings that did not contain. We'll talk about this later. Your consciousness should return to your body first. I feel that I can control 800 nanofragments to my heart's content, so I want to split them again. If you don't go back, you will feel the pain again. Gahan suddenly said to Artoria, No, how can you do this? Upon hearing Gahan's words, Artoria suddenly became agitated. You are suffering so much to save me. If I choose to run away now, wouldn't I be a complete coward? I, Artoria, am the king of Britain. As a king, I cannot let others bear this burden for me. Don't worry, you can split it. My will is right here, I won't budge. Do whatever you want. After receiving Artoria's reply, Gahan did not say anything more. Because the mind would not be destroyed by pain, Artoria would at most faint back in her body due to the pain. Her life would not be in danger. As a result, just as Gahan expected, Artoria, who was shouting that she would not budge, was torn back in her body by the intense pain the moment her mind split. It was not until a day later that she woke up faintly. At the same time, she became extremely terrified. Previously, Artoria had only touched that kind of pain lightly with a part of her mind, so she felt that it was within her tolerance range. But when Artoria's entire mind was suspended in the dimensional pocket, the heart-wrenching pain was completely endured by Artoria for the first time. This pain was more than 10 times greater than before. When Artoria woke up again, she could not help but tremble. The intense pain was still haunting her mind. Oh my God, so this is what Gahan is really suffering. Why? Why would someone I don't even know take the initiative to bear such pain for me? Thinking of this, Artoria's mind was suddenly filled with endless emotions. Artoria had never imagined that there would be someone in this world who could bear such terrible pain for her. Even a king with a heart as hard as steel like Artoria could not help but be deeply moved by Gahan's behavior. For the first time, Artoria realized that her feelings for Gahan were obviously beyond friendship. No, I am the king of Britain. My body and my emotions can only be dedicated to the people of Britain. Emotions are a luxury for me. I can't and don't deserve such things. Artoria said to herself, trying hard to make her heart harden again. That's right. I can't let Gahan bear such pain alone. Even if I can't share his burden at this time, I must feel the pain he is feeling. Artoria thought of this again, and then her mind rushed out of her body again. The great pain from Gahan's mind once again attacked Artoria. Even though Artoria had already prepared herself for the pain, she was hit back in her body after only 2 seconds. But Artoria was never a woman who would admit defeat, and a woman who would admit defeat would not be the Queen of Britain. So even though she would faint every time she came out, as long as she woke up, Artoria would rush back into her body without hesitation. After dozens of times, Artoria was finally able to bear the pain from Gahan's mind and resumed communicating with Gahan. Although about 10 days had passed, the pain from Gahan's mind had greatly reduced. You don't have to do this. Just stay in your own body. Seeing Artoria like this, Gahan said with great pity, No, I don't have the ability to share your pain, but please let me bear the same pain as you. Otherwise my heart will suffer more intense pain. Artoria said like a tongue twister. Who said you can't share my pain? Gahan sent a joyful thought to Artoria. Actually, when your mind exists in this space, the pain I feel is instantly reduced by half compared to before. So I think as long as your mind exists in the dimensional space, you can share the pain from the depths of my mind for me. Is that so? Artoria exclaimed, and then said something that silenced Gahan. According to what you said, doesn't that mean that our wills have merged into one? Yes, our minds have already fused into one. That is indeed the case. After a long silence, Gahan finally replied like this. After knowing that her mind could indeed share Gahan's pain, Artoria became more proactive. When Gahan's mind divided from 1600 to 3200, Artoria also forced herself to stay in the dimensional pocket. In Artoria's own words, she had the determination to share Gahan's pain with the determination to die. As a result, this time Artoria succeeded in holding on for 30 seconds before fainting from the pain. But less than 3 hours later, Artoria once again charged out of the body and continued to share Gahan's pain. Thanks to Artoria's initiative to share the pain, the recovery time for Gahan's mind was reduced from the original 20 days to about 12 days. The speed of splitting greatly increased, and in just half a year, he had split from 3,200 minds to 102,400 different minds, which meant that he could simultaneously control 100,000 nanomachines to repair Artoria's body. The recovery time for a wound was also reduced from the previous 30 days to only an hour. On the 70th day after he met Artoria, all the small wounds on Artoria's body were healed, except for the huge puncture wound on her lower abdomen. How did this wound come about? Who was so cruel? Looking at the huge wound on Artoria's lower abdomen, Gahan said pitifully, It was Zhao Yun. When Artoria's mind mentioned this name, a tremor from her soul was transmitted to Gahan, letting Gahan know how afraid Artoria was of Zhao Yun. That day, when I entered the dimension with your human army to besiege the headquarters of the Martyr's Palace, that Zhao Yun challenged me to a duel. At that time, I was too complacent and thought that since we were both at the Ian rank of Yuan Ko, there was no way I would lose to him. Thinking of this, Artoria let out a self-deprecating thought. But I was wrong. This Zhao Yun is really a powerful and terrifying guy. Yuan Ko, who was only at the Ian rank, actually comprehended the power of laws. I wasn't his match at all. In the end, I was pierced through the abdomen by a spear and had to flee into this seamless corridor. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I would have died. Zhao Yun, the Ian rank of Yuan Ko, comprehended the power of laws. Hearing Artoria say this, Gohan suddenly realized that this Zhao Yun might be the same as him. They were both peerless geniuses who could comprehend the power of laws before reaching the Emperor Sword rank. Alright, next up is your super large wound. As long as this wound is healed, you can leave this dimensional pocket. While speaking, Gohan took off the armor on Artoria's upper body to better heal the wound on her abdomen. Thinking that her most private part of her upper body was exposed in front of Gohan, Artoria's soul began to tremble in shame. Annoying, but once my injury is completely healed, I should be able to see this Gohan who saved my life. I wonder what he looks like. Will he be even more handsome than that unfilial Mordred? Artoria thought shamefully. Chapter 1399. Just as he was about to begin treating the fatal wound on Artoria's chest, Gohan suddenly discovered that he had encountered something he didn't want to see. After another distortion in space-time, Gohan actually discovered a corpse on the floor of the seamless corridor. Lu Qingping. Gohan felt an enormous wave of anger surge into his heart. This corpse was none other than the little girl that Lu Shihua had rescued, the pitiful Lu Qingping who had rushed to the seamless corridor to inform Gohan. In truth, after parting ways with Lu Qingping, Gohan had already guessed that Lu Qingping would be in great danger. This was because Lu Qingping didn't have any power to speak of. She was just an ordinary human, and any one of the Yuan Ko in the seamless corridor could easily kill Lu Qingping. Thus, after parting ways with Lu Qingping, Gohan had already predicted that Lu Qingping would very likely die in the hands of Yuan Ko. But Gohan had never expected that Lu Qingping would actually die in such a manner. But now, she had become a corpse that resembled a broken doll, casually tossed into the seamless corridor. One of Lu Qingping's legs and one of her arms had disappeared, and a large hole had been gnawed out of her chest. Yes, that's right, a large hole had been gnawed out. Lu Qingping's thigh, arm, and chest had been forcefully eaten away by some sort of creature. Damned bastard. This child must have felt incomparable terror and pain before her death. Gohan looked at Lu Qingping's eyes, which were so wide that they were about to pop out of their sockets, and thought to himself with incomparable grief. Could it be that there are wild beast-like Yuan Ko in the seamless corridor? Seeing this scene, Gohan thought to himself in both grief and anger. What's wrong? At the same time, Gohan made up his mind that as long as he encountered any wild beast-like Yuan Ko in the seamless corridor, then Gohan would definitely tear that Yuan Ko into 1,000 pieces and take revenge for Lu Qingping. What's wrong? I can sense that your will is filled with grief. Gohan, did you encounter something sad? Inside the dimensional pocket, Artoria, who sensed Gohan's thoughts, immediately asked with concern. Artoria's mind and Gohan's were one, so Artoria could easily sense the changes in Gohan's mind. Sai, my disciple's adopted daughter has been killed, Gohan said calmly. And then, Lu Qingping's corpse appeared in his dimensional pocket. Gohan naturally couldn't just leave Lu Qingping's corpse in the seamless corridor. As Lu Qingping's senior, Gohan had to bury her so that she could rest in peace and become one with the earth. What a poor child. Seeing Lu Qingping's mutilated corpse, Artoria sighed. But through his mind, Gohan could sense that Artoria didn't feel much fear when she saw such a bloody corpse. I see corpses like this every day on the battlefield of Britain. This is nothing to me. As if sensing Gohan's thoughts, Artoria took the initiative to explain. Yes, I'll avenge her. Gohan nodded. Although he was very sad, Gohan quickly focused his attention on repairing the huge wound on Artoria's abdomen. But in this way, a new problem arose. The injury on Artoria's abdomen was not as simple as a wound. In fact, 2/3 of Artoria's stomach, 4/5 of her kidneys, and many other internal organs were fatally injured. These internal organs were all in a state of mutilation. This was not as simple as repairing muscle tissue. Every organ was a vital organ, and the composition of the various cells in it was ever-changing. If the organs were organized with the wrong cells, then even if Artoria's wound was repaired on the surface, once it left the dimensional pocket, it would immediately fall into a terrible state due to the abnormal functioning of the organs. For safety reasons, Gahan must fully understand the structure of the organs in order to reconstruct Artoria's wound. But Gahan was not a medical graduate. Even if Gahan was a medical graduate, it was impossible for him to know the specific composition of each organ. So at this time, Gahan urgently needed a specimen to let him know the structure of the human organs. And at this time, there happened to be such a standard that could satisfy Gahan's needs. "I'm sorry." Gahan apologized to Lu Qingping's corpse. "That's not good. We can't desecrate the dead." Artoria immediately said as she guessed what Gahan wanted to do. "It's okay. I've always thought that the living are more important than the dead." Gahan said calmly. Ignoring Artoria's objections, he sent more than 100,000 nanomachines into Lu Qingping's body at the same time and began to dissect and analyze the cell composition of Lu Qingping's various body tissues. This analysis took a full 100 days, and Gahan's mind also split from 100,000 to 819,200. He could control such a large number of nanomachines at the same time. When Gahan finally finished analyzing the various organs in Lu Qingping's body, he finally began to repair the last wound in Artoria's body. Thanks to the simultaneous work of 819,200 nanomachines, although Artoria's last wound was incomparably large, the speed of recovery was much faster than most of the previous wounds. In just 10 days, Artoria's body had completely recovered. Gahan even finished repairing some of the hidden internal injuries in Artoria's body. Artoria was completely in the healthiest state. Is this the world of the seamless corridor? After nearly a year, Artoria finally left Gahan's dimensional pocket and appeared in the world of the seamless corridor. She used her mind to control her body. Perhaps it was because she hadn't been able to control her body for a long time. The moment Artoria touched the ground, she couldn't completely control her body and fell flat on her face. "Why aren't you helping me up?" Artoria could not help but complain when she saw that Gahan behind her was just watching a show. He had no intention of helping her up at all. "Only by using my own strength will I be able to adapt to this body as quickly as possible and stand up as soon as possible," Gahan said calmly. Although Artoria admitted that Gahan's words made sense, a wave of dissatisfaction and unhappiness still surged out. She said fiercely, "I don't need you to help me up. I could do it myself." Then Artoria began to try to control her body and stand up from the ground. At first, Artoria did a good job. Half of her body was up, but as her legs gave out, Artoria's body couldn't help but fall to the ground. But this time, Artoria didn't touch the ground. Instead, she was lifted up by a strong arm, and her body was embraced in his embrace. "Didn't you say you wouldn't help me?" Artoria felt the warmth coming from Gahan's body. She pouted and said fiercely, "I regret it." Gahan unconsciously buried his head in Artoria's neck. He sniffed the body fragrance coming from Artoria's body and said faintly, "I realize that rationality is sometimes meaningless. I know that falling is good for your recovery, but I don't want to see you fall in front of me again." Artoria suddenly did not know what to say. She had never heard someone say words of love to her that seemed to be without any feelings, but in fact, it was full of love. Coupled with the fact that the two of them had intertwined in the dimensional pocket for a year, Artoria felt an unprecedented warmth flowing through her body. She felt as if she was about to melt in this man's embrace. And Gahan seemed to have also sensed the change in Artoria's feelings towards him. His lips started from the back of Artoria's neck and kept moving forward until they finally pressed against Artoria's lips. At this time, Artoria was also aroused. Her body was gasping for breath that was as fragrant as an orchid. Their lips finally touched. Gahan began to indulge in the sweet liquid in Artoria's mouth. This was an urgent impulse that Gahan had when he first met Artoria in a game dungeon 9 years ago. This was also the fundamental motivation that drove Gahan to personally enter the seamless corridor to save Artoria, despite the danger. Now that his efforts had finally paid off, Gahan could finally embrace Artoria's body. Naturally, he would immerse himself in Artoria's lips and constantly ask for what he needed. But the happy time was still too short. "Damn it, I really didn't come at the right time." At this critical moment, the entire seamless corridor began to change color again. Guhan, who was afraid of losing Artoria, had no choice but to interrupt the kiss of his dreams and put Artoria back into his dimensional pocket. Do you know? Actually, I prefer the feeling of staying in the dimensional pocket, Artoria said to Gahan after returning to the dimensional pocket. Why? Don't you like the real world outside? Is it returning to the real world your long-cherished wish? Guhan asked Artoria curiously. But only here can I feel your thoughts and truly enjoy the feeling of intertwining with your thoughts. In fact, compared to the kiss just now, I prefer this feeling of being one. It's closer to the love that teacher Plato taught me, Artoria said with a smile. I also prefer this feeling. Guhan replied with a smile. But soon, Gahan would regret such an answer. Chapter 1400. I'm going to kill Plato. For the first time, Gahan found himself hating someone he had never met. In fact, during these days, the relationship between Gahan and Artoria had developed rapidly. At the very least, they had already confirmed their relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend. On the day Artoria returned to the real world, Gahan straightforwardly asked Artoria if she could become his girlfriend. After a moment of reservedness, Artoria happily agreed to Gahan's request. Just like that, the two became a loving couple in the seamless corridor. Although this sounded extraordinarily fast, don't forget that Artoria had been communicating telepathically for as long as a year in the dimensional space. This kind of communication was much deeper and more effective than ordinary verbal communication. This kind of communication that came directly from the depths of one's emotions was irresistible to any man or woman. As long as both parties had a good impression of each other, this good impression could be quickly magnified and finally turned into a burning passion. Of course, the same was true for ill feelings. Once there was ill feelings, they would also quickly magnify. In short, Gahan and Artoria's relationship was established. But after the relationship was established, Gahan discovered that Artoria was actually a loyal believer of Plato. She preferred the kind of communication that came from telepathic and spiritual love. She didn't resist kissing and holding hands, but whenever Gahan tried to take it further, Artoria would very clearly reject Gahan. This wasn't because Gahan was too lustful, but because Gahan found that whenever he was with Artoria, the side effects of the 3 green lotus blades would become more obvious. There were several times when Gahan's desire was so strong that he almost wanted to rape Artoria. But in the end, Artoria was sent back into the dimensional pocket by Gahan in time. Gahan didn't want to go against Artoria's own will. In addition to the huge lust brought about by the first sword, there was also the killing desire brought about by the second sword. These two kinds of desires intertwined, and it didn't feel much better than when his mind was divided. Although Gahan could forcibly resist it, it wasn't a good thing to be tortured by the desires brought about by the 3 green lotus blades. Fortunately, Gahan soon found a way to disperse the side effects of the 3 green lotus blades. That was to break his mind into 810,000 parts like when he repaired Artoria's body. Then he used these parts to control the nanomachines. This way, the huge and different desires would be divided among the 810,000 different parts, and Gahan wouldn't have to bear these desires. But since he had control so many nanomachines, he naturally couldn't let them go to waste. So naturally, Gahan's target was Lu Qingping's body, which was also lying in the dimensional pocket. Previously, in order to understand the cell composition of human organs, Lu Qingping's body had been eaten by beasts and then mercilessly disintegrated by Gahan's nanomachines. She turned from a ragdoll with broken hands and feet into a ragdoll with cotton pulled out. Thinking of this, Gahan felt very ashamed of Lu Qingping. So it was only natural to help Lu Qingping's body return to its normal state. It just so happened that there were so many nanomachines that needed to work at this time, so he could throw them into the task of repairing Lu Qingping's body. Anyway, for Gahan, he had nothing to do at this time. Gahan was indeed quite free now. He had already found Artoria, and he had also found a way to prevent others from being separated from him due to the changes in space-time. The only thing he needed to do next was to find Liu Bang. As long as he found Liu Bang and learned the way to enter the library, Gahan and Artoria would be able to leave the seamless corridor. In the past, he would meet Liu Bang 2 or 3 times a year, but this time, he hadn't seen him for more than a year. Before he met Liu Bang, he had spent all of his free time. So, Gahan had a lot of time to repair Liu Qingping's body. So whether Gahan's body was troubled by the desires brought about by the 3 green lotus swords or not, Gahan would repair Liu Qingping's body in the dimensional pocket. Artoria was also aware of this. She was also very supportive of Gahan's action of repairing Liu Qingping's body, because Liu Qingping's body was, to a certain extent, her savior. But Gahan didn't want Artoria to know that he would have an outburst of desire, because if Artoria knew about it, she might take the initiative to ask Gahan to have sex. This wasn't what Gahan wanted to see. He hoped that Artoria would have sex with him because of his true feelings. But this seemed to be something that was difficult to hide, because as long as their minds intersected, Artoria would definitely be able to feel the desire coming from his mind. At that time, Artoria would definitely know Gahan's true feelings. But it was very easy to prevent this from happening. Anyway, Artoria would only enter the dimensional pocket when time and space changed. Zhang Heng just needed to withdraw his mind from the dimensional pocket at that time. Time passed slowly, and Gahan still hadn't met Liu Bang. However, Liu Qingping's body in the dimensional pocket had almost been repaired. Her body had returned to the appearance of the young girl, and it seemed to have become a little more beautiful. This was because Gahan could not help but inject some of his thoughts about the body into this body. To a certain extent, this could also be considered as half of the body that Gahan had created. When the entire body was about to be completely repaired, Gahan's mind had also increased from 819,200 to 1,310,7200. Even the nanomachines and the nanocapsules were almost not enough for Gahan to control. Just as Liu Qingping's body was about to be repaired, Gahan met some people that he didn't want to meet. Jojo Dangma plus Misaka Mikoto plus Chidu Isuzu. When such a combination appeared in front of Gahan, Gahan also had a headache on how to deal with this group of people. Logically speaking, Gahan should not hesitate to kill these 3 people to vent his anger for what happened before. To some extent, these people were also responsible for Liu Qingping's death. However, the problem was that Jojo Dangma had been good friends with Gahan for more than a year. Misaka Mikoto was Gahan's best friend, and Chidu Isuzu had to shoulder the responsibility of raising the Black Tortoise. Gahan could not kill any of these people. If he did, some of the things that Gahan had experienced would become completely chaotic. Jojo Dangma and the others did not know that they were on the verge of reincarnation. When they saw Artoria next to Gahan, they were pleasantly surprised. "Miss Artoria, please leave this despicable man's side immediately. He's not a good person," Misaka Mikoto said loudly to Artoria. "This guy, he's trying to sabotage me." Gahan immediately cursed in his heart when he heard Misaka Mikoto's words. "What nonsense are you talking about? Gahan is the best man in the world." Artoria was stunned when she heard that, but she retorted firmly. "Sister Artoria, you've been deceived. He's actually a bastard and a despicable person. You have to believe me," Misaka Mikoto said again. "What a strange guy. If you continue to spout nonsense, I'll let you experience the wrath of Britain." Gahan was a little touched by Artoria's words. Artoria was indeed a person who could understand him. She knew what kind of person he was. Looks like sister is right. Without this thing, you won't understand what kind of a bastard this man is, Misaka Mikoto said with a pout. She then took out a small object from her pocket and threw it to Artoria. Artoria instinctively caught the small object in her hand. "Sister, you'll understand everything once you listen to the contents of this phone," Misaka Mikoto said to Artoria. She then stopped bothering Artoria and left with the others in the opposite direction. "This phone looks familiar." Gahan looked at the phone in Artoria's hand. It was a very classic Xiaomi Mix 2 phone. In the future, the Xiaomi Mix 2 was also a very precious collection for collectors. Even in Gahan's dimensional pocket, there was a Xiaomi Mix 2 phone. Qingbin was the one who wanted to buy this phone for fun. In the end, he only played with it for less than a day before he got sick of it. In the end, he threw it into Guhan's dimensional pocket. Listen to it if you want. I've told you everything about me. I'm only married to my sword mistress, Qidian. Other than that, I have nothing to do with other women. Guhan said calmly to Artoria. Actually, I think that the evidence in this phone is evidence that I'm together with Qidian. It's normal for me to show it to you, because I've already told you everything. Guhan had indeed told Artoria everything about Qidian. Moreover, Guhan had also told Artoria very clearly that once they left the seamless corridor, his relationship with Qidian would never change. If Artoria could not accept it, then the friendship between Guhan and Artoria would end there. After all, Artoria was the heroine of a certain harem game. In this harem game, there was a so-called threesome ending. Therefore, after a period of struggle, Artoria finally decided to accept Qidian's existence, and the two of them became Guhan's wives together. All right, then let me see. In the end, Artoria could not resist the temptation of the hidden things in the phone. She watched the video on the phone alone. What do you think? Do you think I'm a bad person? Guhan looked into Artoria's eyes and asked, Nothing. It's all about you and Qidian. It's just making me uncomfortable. Artoria sighed and said with a hint of sadness in her expression. Seeing Artoria's expression, Guhan knew that he should not say anything more to Artoria. After sitting in a daze for a while, Artoria took the initiative to enter Guhan's dimensional pocket. When Artoria came out of Guhan's dimensional pocket again, her expression returned to its previous gentle expression. Guhan thought that the matter was over, until time and space changed again. Artoria suddenly rejected Guhan's intention to put her into the dimensional pocket. Before Guhan could react, Artoria had completely disappeared in front of Guhan. But before they parted, Artoria left the Xiaomi Mix 2 phone in front of Guhan. Believe me, I know that guy has a brand new Xiaomi Mix 2 phone in his dimensional pocket. Take that phone and leave Guhan for a while. You will find out the truth. In the video stored in the Xiaomi Mix 2 phone, the other Artoria said with a serious face. When Guhan began to rummage through his dimensional pocket, the Xiaomi Mix 2 phone that was originally stored in a random corner of the dimensional pocket disappeared. Chapter 1401. Artoria left me with the Xiaomi Mix 2 phone that she took from my dimensional pocket. She then passed the recording to the previous Artoria with this phone, and finally returned it to me with the Xiaomi Mix 2 phone that had finished recording. Guhan muttered softly. From the looks of it, the events that happened to Artoria formed a circle in the timeline, and this circle seemed to include Dangma Jojo, Misaka Mikoto, and Chidu Isuzu. It was not as simple as what he saw now. From the looks of it, something very important must have happened in this circle that made Artoria feel despair and anger toward him, and finally, her love turned into hatred. Only something like this would make Artoria leave such a recording in her hands. Guhan was sure that before Artoria left him, their relationship was extremely good. If there were no other accidents, Artoria would never treat him like this. So the question was, what accident or misunderstanding happened between him and Artoria that led to this situation? This was something that Guhan could not figure out at the moment. Whatever, no matter what, as long as I don't do anything wrong to her, she won't be angry with me. Guhan was not a person who would dwell on one thing. So he quickly decided to put Artoria's matter aside for the time being and began to repair Lu Qingping's body in his dimensional pocket. Lu Qingping's body was already in a state of almost complete repair, so it did not take Guhan long before Lu Qingping's body was completely repaired. The poor child had been restored to her appearance when she was alive, but that lovely life would never come back. Let's do one last check. Guhan planned to check Lu Qingping's body one last time. After making sure that all parts of her body were completely repaired, he would seal her body. After leaving the seamless corridor, he would bring Lu Qingping's body back to Earth to be buried. It would be a small token of Guhan's appreciation. Needless to say, during the final check, Guhan really found some problems. Guhan suddenly discovered that there was actually a small wound on the back of Lu Qingping's head. The wound was not big, but it went straight to Lu Qingping's brain and damaged a part of her brain. Since Guhan had nothing else to do at the moment, he decided to completely repair Lu Qingping's body with the principle of helping the Buddha to the West. However, there was a problem, and that was that Guhan did not understand the structure of the human brain. He could only analyze the other intact parts of Lu Qingping's brain while repairing Lu Qingping's brain. In this process of learning and repairing, Guhan was bound to make some mistakes. In his fluster, Guhan also lost quite a few nanomachines, as well as the consciousness attached to them, because Guhan had already split into 13 million consciousness fragments. Losing a dozen or so was not a big deal to Guhan. In addition, these nanomachines were originally made of biological materials, so leaving them in the brain would not cause any harm. Therefore, Guhan simply left these nanomachines in Lu Qingping's brain. On the 24th day after Artoria left, on this day, Guhan finally finished repairing Lu Qingping's body. But just as Guhan was about to seal Lu Qingping's body according to his original plan, a thought suddenly appeared in Guhan's dimensional pocket. Don't seal my body. I'm still alive. This thought gave Guhan a very familiar feeling. After thinking about it carefully, could it be that this thought came from Lu Qingping's consciousness? You're not dead. Seeing this scene, even the usually calm Guhan was shocked. This was because when he repaired Lu Qingping's brain, Guhan was very sure that Lu Qingping's brain had completely lost its vitality. Guhan never thought that Lu Qingping would actually come back to life one day. I was already dead, but there's still a weak trace of consciousness in my brain. Thanks to the consciousness fragments that you left in my brain, Sword Deity Hongjun, they have activated my remaining weak consciousness. Lu Qingping's consciousness said very weakly. Through this weak communication method, Guhan finally understood the ins and outs of Lu Qingping's resurrection. It turned out that Yuan Ko, who killed Lu Qingping, was a blood-sucking demon beast in Digimon. He was a universe-level Yuan Ko, and he was born with the ability to attack souls. Therefore, most of Lu Qingping's soul was devoured by the blood-sucking demon beast. However, because of the blood-sucking demon beast's ability to devour souls, a little bit of Lu Qingping's soul was left on the wound caused by the blood-sucking demon beast. At the same time, it was also fixed on the wound, so it wouldn't drift away like a normal soul. In fact, as long as enough time passed, this little bit of soul would eventually disappear. Fortunately, less than 3 days after Lu Qingping's death, she met Guhan and was placed into the dimensional pocket by Guhan, which completely protected the little bit of soul. Most importantly, in the end, Guhan left his split consciousness fragments at the wound. These consciousness fragments were finally absorbed by Lu Qingping's soul fragments, which strengthened her soul. Thus, Lu Qingping's soul completed the resurrection and regained control of Lu Qingping's body. This process sounded like a fantasy story, but it really allowed Lu Qingping to be resurrected. Regarding this result, Guhan was naturally very happy. He didn't expect that he would be able to resurrect Lu Qingping by chance. This was really the best news that Guhan had received since Artoria left. At the same time, because Lu Qingping's body was repaired in the dimensional pocket, Lu Qingping was obviously just an ordinary human, but she had the ability to survive in the dimensional pocket. She also became the first human in human history who could be carried through the dimensional pocket. This was really an unprecedented discovery. Guhan couldn't help but guess that if this mode could be replicated, then in the future, ordinary humans could also be carried through the dimensional pocket. This way, the safety of ordinary humans could be greatly guaranteed. Of course, this mode was also very dangerous. First of all, ordinary humans needed to die through the means of resurrection after death to obtain such a special ability. If there was a mistake in the operation, then it would be very troublesome. Soon, Guhan released Lu Qingping's body from the dimensional pocket. However, although Lu Qingping's body had recovered, her soul was still very weak. She couldn't even control her body normally. At most, she could only blink weakly. This made Guhan a little annoyed. The soul could not be restored through self-repair like the body. Otherwise, those humans who returned from the dungeon world would not have a short life because of the lack of soul. If he didn't find a way to make up for Lu Qingping's missing soul, then even if Lu Qingping was resurrected now, she would soon die again because of the exhaustion of soul energy. At that time, Lu Qingping could no longer be resurrected. Guhan knew that according to human research, the best way to repair a soul was to use a soul solution. Through the soul solution, Lu Qingping's lost soul could be replenished, just like what Guhan had done to save when Maiden. But the problem was that Guhan didn't carry such a thing on him. However, such a difficulty was not difficult for Guhan. If the fragments of consciousness he left in Lu Qingping's brain activated the remaining soul fragments of Lu Qingping, then if he added some fragments of consciousness to Lu Qingping's brain, would Lu Qingping's soul be strengthened? With this idea in mind, Guhan began to experiment again. And just as Guhan guessed, Guhan's fragments of consciousness could indeed repair Lu Qingping's soul. Guhan sent 10,000 nanomachines into Lu Qingping's brain through the ear hole. Naturally, all the fragments of consciousness contained in them were absorbed by Lu Qingping. As a result, Lu Qingping's soul was greatly restored. From a state where she couldn't control her body at all, she evolved to a state where she could barely control her fingers. Guhan continued to work hard. In the end, he consumed close to 1 million fragments of consciousness and finally completely replenished Lu Qingping's lost soul. What surprised Guhan even more was that his fragments of consciousness had the effect of replenishing sword essence. When Lu Qingping was resurrected again, her innate sword essence was no longer a pitiful 9 points. Instead, it had more than 3,000 quarks of sword essence. After being identified by the instrument that Guhan carried with him, the sword essence in Lu Qingping's body was not acquired, but innate. Just like that, Guhan made another shocking discovery. The innate sword essence in everyone's body was related to their soul. After being replenished by the fragments of consciousness of an emperor sword wielder, Lu Qingping's soul had become completely different. She had become a super genius with more than 10,000 quarks of innate sword essence. One could imagine that once Lu Qingping returned to reality, another dazzling sword wielder like Lu Shihua would be born. Such a genius did not need luck. Only a high-level sword wielder would be willing to split his own consciousness and use this consciousness to inject the soul of a child. To humans, this was undoubtedly an important discovery. It meant that super genius sword wielder did not need to rely on God's gift. They only needed to be artificially created. Geniuses could be created. In the future, the strength and number of sword wielder that humans would have would greatly increase. By then, it might even be possible for everyone to be a sword wielder. Humans would then be able to win against Yuan Ko. Chapter 1402. This is definitely a very important discovery for mankind. I must bring this discovery back so that the future of mankind will be bright. Guhan looked at Lu Qingping, who was jumping happily in front of him, celebrating her new life. At this moment, Lu Qingping had become a very important treasure in Guhan's eyes. This treasure even surpassed Lu Shihua, Artoria, and everything that Guhan had. As long as Guhan could continue to carry out a series of research on Lu Qingping and systematically explore a complete set of perfect methods to artificially create geniuses, then mankind could usher in true liberation. Thus, in the following period of time, Guhan carried out extremely detailed experiments on Lu Qingping. He discovered that all of Lu Qingping's experimental data were as he had guessed. Now, he only lacked some artificial sword maidens and other dead human corpses. Otherwise, Guhan would have been able to carry out further experiments. In the process of the experiment, in order to know the limit of Lu Qingping's innate sword essence, Guhan forcibly injected a lot of consciousness fragments into Lu Qingping. In the end, Guhan only had 8 million consciousness fragments left, and 5 million of them were injected into Lu Qingping's body by Guhan. Lu Qingping's innate sword essence had also reached a shocking 15,000 innate sword essence. which was second only to Kenzu's talent in history. It was already able to catch up with Shitian Jian's talent. Let's see if I can create a monster with innate sword essence to reach the spirit sword level. Gohan was completely aroused by his shocking research results. If 1 million consciousness fragments were equivalent to 3,000 innate sword essence, then as long as he injected 40 million consciousness fragments into Lu Qingping, wouldn't Lu Qingping be able to directly become a spirit sword level sword bearer? However, Gohan only had 8 million consciousness fragments left at this time, but it didn't matter. Gohan could still split it. As long as he split it 3 more times, he would be able to have the required 40 million consciousness fragments. At this time, Gohan had completely entered a state of madness. He only wanted to make Lu Qingping's talent more terrifying, but he didn't think of another thing. That was, Gohan's consciousness fragments did not appear out of thin air, but split from his own consciousness. Before, no matter how Gohan split his consciousness, all the consciousness fragments were still controlled by Gohan. In fact, it was equivalent to a complete whole, so continuing to split would not have any serious consequences. But when Gohan injected 5 million consciousness fragments into Lu Qingping's soul, everything became completely different. Gohan's consciousness fragments were no longer a complete whole. If he split a consciousness in half again, Gohan would undoubtedly receive revenge from his soul. So the moment Gohan rashly decided to split his consciousness, it was too late. Gohan's entire soul began to riot. Not only did the remaining 8 million consciousness fragments not split, but they instead formed individual bodies and began to attack and kill each other crazily. Gohan's sea of consciousness instantly turned into a terrifying battlefield. Each consciousness fragment became a soldier, while Gohan's original consciousness could only helplessly watch the battle unfold. If he didn't think of a way to stop this battle, once all of Gohan's consciousness fragments died, then Gohan would become like Lu Qingping, a living dead with a body but no soul. What should I do? This was a problem that Gohan had to solve, and he had to be fast. Gohan only had less than a minute. If he couldn't solve this battle in a minute, then Gohan would die without a doubt. Actually, without thinking too much, Gohan already knew a way to solve this problem. It was the Green Lotus 3 swords that he hadn't used for a long time. The first sword of the Green Lotus 3 swords was called Green Lotus White Root Body. It could increase Gohan's control over his body by 100 times, but it would bring about the side effect of not being able to control his lust. The second sword of the Green Lotus 3 swords was called Green Lotus Wind Fire Wheel. It could also increase Gohan's fighting instinct by 100 times, but it would bring about the side effect of not being able to control his lust. The third sword of the Green Lotus 3 swords was also called Green Lotus Soul Lead. It had a very simple function, which was to repair one's missing soul. At the same time, it would not bring about the side effect of lust and killing like the previous 2 swords. However, if one wanted to use the third sword, they would first have to push the first and second sword to the extreme at the same time. Then, they would have to use intercourse to take the other person's primordial yin from their body. Only then would they be able to repair their own recovery. To put it simply, it was to take the yin to make up for the yang. Such an old-fashioned setting had happened to Gohan. And now, Gohan needed a woman. Fortunately, there was a woman in front of Gohan. Moreover, when Gohan was repairing this woman's body, he found that she was a real girl. As long as they started intercourse, Gohan would be able to use her to repair his soul. However, the problem was that because of the chaos and the fragments of his consciousness, Gohan's soul could only control a small part of his body. Most of his power had to be used to push Jian-Su to perform the Green Lotus 3 swords. Gohan did not have any spare power to say anything to Lu Qingping and ask her to sacrifice herself. However, at this time, Gohan did not have the time to think about these problems because Gohan only had 1 minute left. He immediately performed the Green Lotus 3 swords with all his strength, and then let his body react to the extreme. At the same time, he pointed his erect little brother at Lu Qingping and said something with difficulty, hoping that Lu Qingping would understand him and take the initiative to sacrifice herself. However, Gahan did not have any confidence in his heart. First, Gahan was not sure if Lu Qingping could understand him, because he could not speak clearly at the moment, so it was very normal for Lu Qingping not to understand him. Second, Gahan did not know if Lu Qingping had the consciousness to sacrifice herself for him. As long as Lu Qingping hesitated for even a minute, then Gahan would definitely die. However, there was no other way. Gahan could only take a gamble. Fortunately, Gahan won. Lu Qingping almost immediately understood Gahan's meaning, and then without hesitation, she took off her clothes. Harmony. This was the third woman that Gahan truly had. The first was the woman that Gahan did not know who she was. The second was the sword of Qi, and the third was Lu Qingping in front of him. Gahan had thought that the third would be Artoria, but he never thought that she would become his disciple's adopted daughter. The world was ever-changing, and it was never something that he could calculate clearly. As soon as he completed the intercourse with Lu Qingping, Gahan's soul received the protection of an ice-cold power. The original consciousness that was on the verge of collapse began to strengthen, and then it opened its big mouth and began to frantically devour the 8 million fragments of consciousness that were fighting in his sea of consciousness. With the constant movement between the two of them, Gahan's original consciousness was replenished more and more. In the end, it completely devoured the 8 million fragments of consciousness, and with the feedback of the yang qi in Gahan's body, the huge original consciousness once again exploded like a bomb. When everything calmed down, Gahan was surprised to find that his consciousness was still in a state of division, and this time, Gahan had a total of 100 million divided consciousnesses. But what made Gahan even more surprised was that although there were 100 million divided consciousnesses, the original consciousness had been restored to its original state before the division. In other words, not only did Gahan now have a complete original consciousness, but he also had an additional 100 million divided consciousnesses. This way, even if Gahan were to do dangerous experiments like before, he would not harm his original consciousness. For Gahan, this was undoubtedly great news. And what made Gahan even more surprised was that with the completion of the third sword, the Green Lotus Soul Guide, the side effects of the first sword, Green Lotus White Root Body, and the second sword, Green Lotus Fire Wheel, had completely disappeared. This way, Gahan could use the 3 Green Lotus Swords without any hindrance, and no longer had to worry about the side effects of the 3 Green Lotus Swords. Thank you, Lu Qingping. Gahan excitedly hugged Lu Qingping, who was still connected to him, in his arms. At the same time, he forcefully kissed Lu Qingping's lips. But in the next second, Gahan heard the sound of teeth grinding. So you are such a pervert. No wonder I warned myself in the future that you would do such a thing to a corpse. Gahan looked in front of him in a daze. He did not know when Artoria had appeared in front of him, and everything that he and Lu Qingping had done had been exposed in front of Artoria. At this moment, Gahan seemed to have figured out the ins and outs of everything. He knew why Artoria had fallen out with him in the end. It turned out that this scene had fallen into Artoria's eyes. Let me explain. Gahan quickly calmed himself down. I don't have that kind of hobby for corpses. Lu Qingping is not dead. After I repaired her body, she was resurrected. So, you and Lu Qingping are actually in love. You fell in love with another woman only a few days after you fell in love with me? Artoria said through gritted teeth. At this moment, Gahan realized that perhaps admitting that he was interested in corpses was a better way to solve the problem. But how could Gahan admit that he was interested in corpses? It's not like that. I was in danger when I was practicing just now, and this is the only way to save my life. Gahan quickly explained, "Don't deceive me with such a ridiculous excuse. This kind of excuse has been used too many times in the online novels you have shown me, and you still want to use such a stupid excuse." Artoria suddenly sneered, then looked at Gahan and said, "Well, since you and her are just a heel, then throw her down the corridor. As long as you throw her down, I will believe that you don't love her, and I will forgive you." Love was really a magical thing. Even the originally pure, kind, and upright Artoria suddenly became a ferocious demon in the face of love. Chapter 1403. Seeing Artoria's ferocious expression, Gohan suddenly understood many things in an instant. He let out a long sigh and put Lu Qingping, who had fainted from the strenuous exercise, into his dimensional pocket. He then looked at Artoria calmly and said, "I won't explain anything. I can only say that this is fate." "Very well. Then you can go to hell with your fate." Artoria glanced coldly at Gohan, then walked in the opposite direction. The two gradually walked further and further away. As time once again changed, the entire world of the seamless corridor became quiet again. Fate, can it be changed? Thinking of Artoria's last words, Gohan fell into deep thought. Once upon a time, Gohan was watered with chicken soup. He firmly believed that man could conquer nature, that man could rely on his own efforts to overcome fate and even change fate. But after experiencing all sorts of things, Gohan discovered that the reason why fate could be called fate was because it was already destined to be unchangeable. No matter how hard he worked, it was impossible to change fate because his own efforts and struggles had already been predetermined by fate. This may sound a little mysterious, but let me give you a simple example to illustrate it. For example, a slacker student who scored less than 40 points in exams every day after encountering a sudden event decided to rely on his own efforts to change his original fate and become a top student. Then, the general conclusion could be that this student would have two endings in the end. One was that he would work hard and become a top student, or the other would be the same as before, a slacker student in the end. In terms of the second ending, we can say that this student did not work hard enough, so he did not change his fate. But can we say that in the first ending, this student changed his fate? No, this student had never changed his fate from beginning to end, because fate had determined that he would work hard in the latter half of his studies, so fate had also determined that he would become a top student. This was something that had been determined by fate. Similarly, whether it was Liu Bang or Zhu Yuanzhang, those emperors who were born as commoners, did they really change their fate with their own hands? No, they had never changed their fates from beginning to end, because Liu Bang was the son of the Red Emperor, and Zhu Yuanzhang was the reincarnation of a dragon and a phoenix. These were also predestined, but in the eyes of outsiders, they had changed their fates. From this moment on, Gohan's life and values changed. Gohan's belief that fate could be changed gradually changed to the belief that everything was predestined. This didn't mean that Gohan had given up on fighting or working hard. This only made Gohan wiser. People who could see through fate would all be wise. No one knew whether this was good or bad, but in the end, it was something decided by fate. At this moment, Gohan suddenly fell into a mysterious realm. In Buddhist terms, Gohan had begun to be enlightened. P.S. Here, I borrow Gohan to talk about the author's view of fate, but the author wants to make it clear that the author's view of fate is not to let everyone sit at home doing nothing and wait for an unchangeable fate. The author just wants to tell everyone that although fate is determined by the heavens, no one in this world can know their own fate. So, until the very last moment, don't think that your fate will be like this, because you will never know what your future will be like. Lord, Sword Immortal Hongjun, are you okay? When Gohan woke up from his meditation, he heard the voice of Lu Qingping in the dimensional pocket. I'm fine. I've never felt so good, Gohan said faintly. Although his voice sounded very calm, it made Lu Qingping feel a sense of stillness. How should she put it? At this moment, Gohan felt like he had become a god. Sorry. Gohan seemed to have realized his abnormality. He withdrew his aura, and the feeling of a god disappeared without a trace. He returned to the normal Gohan. But Lu Qingping knew that Gohan had changed. What do we do next? Lu Qingping changed the topic and asked, Wait, the one who should come will come sooner or later. After Gohan finished speaking, he actually sat down cross-legged. He was no longer like before, moving forward in the endless, seamless corridor. Instead, he sat there motionlessly, like an old monk in meditation. At the same time, Gohan's mind sank into his dimensional pocket. At this time, there were still 100 million consciousness fragments in the dimensional pocket. After treating Lu Qingping, These consciousness fragments seem to have nothing to do. Do you want to see a magic trick? Gohan suddenly asked Lu Qingping. Lu Qingping hadn't reacted to what Gohan meant when some of the buckets in the dimensional pocket suddenly began to move. These buckets were moved by Gohan to an empty space in the dimensional pocket. The pure water carried in them was poured out by Gohan, but this pure water did not fall at the bottom of the dimensional pocket. Instead, it floated in the air and finally formed a water block like a square flat. It looked like a lake, but this lake did not have a lake bottom and a shore, just water. Seeing this, Lu Qingping was completely confused. She had no idea what Gohan wanted to do and what was the meaning of making such a lake. Next, Gohan took out a large snakeskin bag from the supplies. When the contents of the bag were poured out, Lu Qingping realized that the bag was actually filled with fresh meat. It was not the kind of fresh meat, but the fresh meat that had just been slaughtered without any processing or cooking. This meat was originally prepared for Qingpin, but now it seemed that she could only let Gohan use it. She saw Gohan control a large piece of fresh meat to float directly above the lake. Then, in an instant, the whole piece of fresh meat exploded like a bomb. The meat was divided into extremely tiny diced meat that was 10 times smaller than sesame seeds. There were so many of them that Lu Qingping estimated that the total number was at least 100 million. What happened next made Lu Qingping's jaw drop. After these pieces of meat, which were smaller than sesame seeds, entered the water, they actually began to swim agilely. These pieces of meat clearly looked like pieces of meat, but when they swam, they were like living fish. They flowed freely in this lake, as if they were alive. To Lu Qingping's relief, Gohan finally stopped his inexplicable actions. The movement in the dimensional pocket finally stopped, and Lu Qingping was released from the dimensional pocket by Gohan. Let's meet an old friend. He's finally here. Mr. Liu Bang. When Lu Qingping came out of the dimensional pocket, she immediately shouted in surprise. The person in front of her was Liu Bang, one of the few acquaintances she had been with for a long time in this world. Huh, you're still alive? That's great. Liu Bang smiled awkwardly. Then, Lu Qingping found that Liu Bang was not the only one who appeared. Behind him, there were 4 people standing there coldly. Mr. Jojo Doma, Ms. Chidu Isuzu, Ms. Misaka Makoto, and Ms. Artoria. Lu Qingping read out the names of these people in a daze. She did not expect these people to gather at this moment. I can't believe we meet again. You bitch, you heartless man. Misaka Makoto and Chidu Isuzu angrily clenched their fists and waved them at Gohan. Jojo Doma could only look at Gohan awkwardly. When Misaka Makoto's attention was not on him, he made an apologetic expression at Gohan, indicating that he did not want to do this to Gohan, but was forced by Misaka Makoto. As for the most important person, Artoria, she was expressionless the entire time. She looked into the distance, as if her heart had died. She did not even look at Gohan. Oomph. Sister Artoria, this guy really doesn't care about you. He's just lying to you. Otherwise, how could he be so calm? He didn't even ask why. Misaka Makoto said to Artoria unhappily when she saw that Gohan did not respond to her provocation and anger. It's not that I don't care about you, but I've thought through everything. There's no need to ask anymore. Gohan replied calmly. You're lying. How could you have thought through everything? Chidu Isuzu chimed in. Forget it. There's no need for us to continue this conversation. Gohan sighed, then turned to Liu Bang and said, Mr. Liu Bang, what's your decision? What decision? What decision do I have? Liu Bang pretended to be confused. Of course, you're going to follow me or them. Gohan did not give Liu Bang a chance to play dumb. He went straight to the point. Are you going to follow me to the library? Or are you going to follow them? This. Liu Bang was completely at a loss. After hesitating for a long time, he said helplessly, I'm going to follow his lead. After all, I need the help of his fantasy killer. I see. After listening to Liu Bang's words, Gohan did not try to persuade him anymore. He only quietly added, You can go with them, but tell me the way to the library. Then you can go. This. Liu Bang stammered again. Did the librarian tell you that only 6 people can leave this place? That's why you won't allow a second team to interfere with you, right? Before Liu Bang could finish, Gahan cut to the chase. Chapter 1404. Gahan, you're really smart. I knew I can't hide anything from you. That's right, there are only 6 people who can leave this place. Please forgive me, but I can't tell you the way to the library. Liu Bang smiled bitterly. Brother, I'm sorry. I have no choice. If I had the choice, I would definitely bring you along. Hearing the conversation between Liu Bang and Gahan, Chidu Isuzu looked at the ashen-faced Artoria and said to Gahan, Actually, it's not that we can't bring you along. After all, our team only has 5 people. There's still one more spot. If you want to leave this place, leave this woman here and come with us. We'll bring you along. The woman that Chidu Isuzu was referring to was none other than Lu Qingping. Isuzu, what nonsense are you talking about? How can we do that? To everyone's surprise, Misaka Makoto was the first to object to Isuzu's suggestion. She looked at Isuzu with dissatisfaction. Obviously, she did not agree with Isuzu's idea. In fact, this was Misaka Makoto's normal personality. Misaka Makoto was a kind person. Forcing a man to leave a woman behind was something that Misaka Makoto could not accept. Don't say anything. I'm helping Sister Artoria. You don't want to see her like this forever, right? Isuzu's words stunned Misaka Makoto. Right then, Lu Qingping took the initiative and said, Master Sword Deity Hong Jun, the real world is more important. I'm willing to stay here. After all, I don't need to eat here and I won't age. Instead, I can become immortal. I'm willing to stay here. Lu Qingping was indeed Lu Shihua's goddaughter. She was willing to sacrifice herself for Gahan's sake. That's right. Look at this woman. Hurry up and agree. Isuzu urged Gahan. However, Gahan ignored Isuzu. He looked at Liu Bang and said, Tell me the way to the library. Didn't I tell you? Unless you come with us, I won't tell you. Liu Bang became a little impatient and said straightforwardly, If that's the case, then there's no other way. Let's do it. Gahan said lightly. What? Liu Bang was taken aback for a moment. Then he quickly retreated. Only when he returned to his team did he breathe a sigh of relief. He then confidently said to Gahan, Brother Gahan, I advise you to give up on this unrealistic idea. We have 5 universe-grade warriors here, but you're alone. How could you possibly be a match for the 5 of us? I didn't expect that the first time I fought in the Seamless Corridor, my opponents would actually be my old friends. Gahan sighed and stood up from the ground. He pulled out the Qingpin sword from his waist and shook it slightly before saying to the 5 people, Don't worry, I will still care about our past friendship and spare your lives. This guy is so arrogant. Let's all attack him together. Don't worry, Brother Gahan, we will spare your life as well. Liu Bang seemed to be infuriated by Gahan's arrogant attitude. He exchanged glances with his companions around him. Other than Artoria, everyone else attacked Gahan at the same time. Liu Bang was the first grassroots emperor in the history of Huaxia. He was also the origin of the name of the entire Han nationality. Misaka Makoto was the controller of lightning and had the super electromagnetic gun that could penetrate steel. Isuzu was the most powerful person in the Magic Kingdom. Although he did not have much combat power, he had the fantasy killer ability that could render all superpowers ineffective. This was an extremely powerful combination. No matter how Liu Bang and the others thought about it, they felt that only a primeval existence could defeat them. Otherwise, no one would have the ability to defeat them. Unfortunately, fate was fate, and fate was far more ridiculous than they had imagined. In just 10 seconds, the 4 universe-level Yuan Ko were all defeated by Gahan. They moaned and lay on the ground, completely losing their combat power. The 4 of them did not even know how they were defeated. They only knew that they had lost when the sword flashed in front of them. Is this guy really an immortal sword-level sword wielder? Why do I feel that even an Emperor sword-level sword wielder is not as terrifying as him? After this attack, Liu Bang had completely lost the courage to continue fighting. In his eyes, Guhan's image had instantly become extremely terrifying. He was much more terrifying than the super demon god Xiangyu, who had beaten him to the point that he had to run away like a rat and almost lost his father's life. Against Xiangyu, Liu Bang still had tricks and the courage to fight him. However, against Guhan now, Liu Bang did not have the courage to fight at all. This was because Liu Bang could not think of a way to defeat Guhan. "Is this all you've got?" Artoria, who was the only one who had not fallen, stared at Guhan in shock. She did not attack because she still cared about the last bit of friendship between her and Guhan. She thought that it was enough for her 4 companions to attack. There was no need for her to destroy the last bit of friendship between her and Guhan. However, what Artoria did not expect was that Guhan could defeat the 4-universe level Yuan Ko so easily. The entire process could be said to be extremely easy. So what if you are powerful? This cannot hide the despicable nature in your heart. Artoria said through gritted teeth. "Tell me how to get to the library." Guhan ignored Artoria's words and walked to Liu Bang's side. Now, Guhan was only interested in Liu Bang. In other words, Guhan did not know how to face the somewhat deranged Artoria. "If I don't tell you, will you kill me?" Liu Bang asked as he looked into Guhan's eyes. "Yes." Guhan's reply was very light. "Then I'll tell you. In fact, go to the library is very simple. You just have to jump down from the corridor." Liu Bang gritted his teeth and finally revealed the biggest secret hidden in his heart. "Is that so?" Guhan said non-committally. "Do you think I'm lying to you?" Seeing Guhan's expression, Liu Bang immediately said very nervously, "This is something that I personally experienced. When I stayed in this world for 10 years, I did not meet a single friend, and I did not even have a novel in my hand. My entire soul and consciousness were already unable to withstand the explosion. So, in the end, I decided to commit suicide and jump into this bottomless abyss. I only thought that as long as I died, all the pain and torture would disappear. In the end, I jumped into the library and met the librarian. From him, I learned the way to leave the seamless corridor, and he sent me back into the seamless corridor." Liu Bang said. "Are you lying to a 3-year-old child?" The nearby Liu Qingping couldn't bear to watch any longer. She said, "If you can enter the library just by jumping down, then doesn't that mean that there are many people like you who have jumped down and entered the library? If so, why is it that even though Lord Sword Immortal encountered so many bandits on his way here, not a single one of them was like you, aware of this matter? Because everyone who entered the library stayed in the library and did not want to leave. Only a fool like me still has a trace of delusion about the real world." Liu Bang said with a wry smile. "It's a magical library. Every book corresponds to a world in the dimension. They just want to return to their original world, but I want to live in the real world." Liu Bang tried his best to explain, but before he could finish, Guhan interrupted him directly. "Then you go first." After saying that, Guhan placed Liu Bang's body at the edge of the seamless corridor. At the same time, a stream of sword essence was injected into Liu Bang's body. Liu Bang was stimulated by the sword essence and regained control of his body. "I'll give you one more chance to tell the truth. As long as you tell the truth, I can let you go," Guhan said to Liu Bang. "Guhan, you don't believe me either, do you?" Liu Bang sighed. "Fine, I'll go first. Remember to jump down before the next space-time change. Otherwise, the time we enter the library will be messed up, and we won't be able to gather 6 people." After saying that, Liu Bang jumped down from the seamless corridor without hesitation. This also showed that Liu Bang was indeed telling the truth. Otherwise, with the shameless character of the Liu family, it would be impossible for them to jump so actively and decisively. "You guys go down too," Guhan said as he looked at Artoria and the others. Artoria looked at Guhan silently and was the second to jump down. Chidu Isuzu also jumped down after her. Jijo Dangma and Misaka Mikoto jumped down hand in hand. "Let's jump too." Guhan nodded at Liu Qingping, and the two of them jumped down the corridor together. Liu Qingping thought that after jumping down from the seamless corridor, she would have to go through an extremely long period of falling due to the bottomless abyss. However, the reality was that the moment Lu Qingping stepped out of the seamless corridor, the world in front of her eyes changed. Finally, she appeared in a small house. Yes, it was a small house. In Lu Qingping's imagination, the library in the seamless corridor must be a huge library with the same endless bookshelves and space as the seamless corridor. That was the only way to live up to the name of the seamless library. However, when Lu Qingping began to look around, she realized that the library was actually a pitifully small place. It was less than 30 square meters in size, and there were only 5 rows of bookshelves in the entire library with a few books scattered around. Rather than calling it a library, it would be more appropriate to call it a bookstore. There was also a white-haired old man who was wearing a tattered white vest and had a Honkshin cigarette in his mouth. He was dozing off on a rattan chair. There was a large badge on his chest with the words librarian written on it. Chapter 1405. Boss, where the rest of the people who came down before me? Gahan carefully looked around the entire library and realized that there was no one else in the entire library other than himself and the librarian. Where were the rest of the people who had jumped down before Gahan? Don't worry, they will naturally come down when it's time to come down. The white-haired old man who was sitting on the rocking chair slowly opened his eyes and said in a slow, gentle tone unique to old people, "Young man, if you're not in a hurry, why don't you accompany me for a chat?" "No problem." Gahan nodded. Even if he did not want to chat with this old man, he had to. Otherwise, those people who had jumped down before him might not be able to do so anymore. "Young man, I see that you're frowning. Is there something troubling or puzzling you? Do you need me to explain it to you one by one?" the old man asked. "No," Gahan replied calmly. "Really? Don't tell me you don't want to know what exactly happened in that ever-changing space-time up there that caused all of your friends to disappear?" Hearing the old man's words, he seemed to have completely understood what had happened in the seamless corridor. "No need." Guhan smiled. "Actually, I've already thought it through." "Oh, so many time points. Have you really thought it through?" The old man revealed a surprised smile. "Then I'm all ears. Simply put, for my timeline, if the time point after Artoria received the Xiaomi Mix 2 and I separated was time point 0, then after we met, Lu Qingping and I had sex at time point 1. Then, in her anger, she met Misaka Makoto for the first time at time point 2. Misaka Makoto and I met at time point 4, but they didn't know each other very well. Artoria, who was overly sad at time point 2, naturally needed someone to talk to. She told Misaka Makoto everything that she had seen. Then, she understood the problem of the time paradox and used the Xiaomi Mix 2 that I had stolen from my dimensional pocket to record a video and audio. Then, she gave the Xiaomi Mix 2 to Misaka Makoto and instructed her to give the Xiaomi Mix 2 to her if she saw me and Artoria together for the first time. To put it nicely, Misaka Makoto was a person filled with a sense of justice. To put it bluntly, she was an overly emotional person. After listening to Artoria's experience, she was naturally filled with sympathy for Artoria. At the same time, she was filled with hatred for me. She patted her chest and agreed to Artoria's request. Then, the two of them separated. Next, at time point 1, Misaka Makoto met Jojo Dangma for the first time. She took the opportunity to talk to Jojo Dangma alone and told him everything about Artoria and me. Then, she asked Jojo Dangma to separate from me. In the end, the two of us did indeed separate. Then, between time point 1 and time point 2, Artoria, Misaka Makoto, Jojo Dangma, Chidu Isuzu, and Lu Bang met. With Jojo Dangma's ability, the 5 of them gathered together and met me at time point 2. Then, the few of us jumped down, or purely from the timeline of events. After Misaka Makoto met me for the first time, she met Artoria. In the end, Artoria asked Misaka Makoto to take care of the Xiaomi Mix 2 and the future matters. After that, Misaka Makoto met Jojo Dangma, me, Lu Bang, and Lu Qingping. Then, she forced Jojo Dangma to separate from us. After that, she met Chidu Isuzu. After that, Misaka Makoto and Jojo Dangma met Artoria and me. Then, Chidu Isuzu gave Artoria the Xiaomi Mix 2 that Artoria had given to her and asked her to separate from me. After that, Artoria saw what happened between Lu Qingping and me. She re-recorded the video in the Xiaomi Mix 2 and passed it to Misaka Makoto. Then, she separated from Misaka Makoto again. If she did not separate from Misaka Makoto would never be able to meet the past Artoria. It was only after Misaka Makoto gave Xiaomi Mix 2 to her past self that Artoria reunited with Misaka Makoto. At that time, they also met Lu Bang. Then, before they found their sixth teammate, they met Lu Qingping and me. That's what happened. I think I've explained it clearly. Gahan described the entire process in two different ways in one breath. P.S. I'm not sure which way is easier for everyone to understand, or is it that both ways are not enough for the readers to understand? It seems like you're very smart. I'm relieved. The old man nodded, as if he was very satisfied with Gahan's answer. Then, can you tell me how I can leave this seamless corridor? Gahan asked. Of course. I've waited here for so long just to send you out. The old man sighed. Unfortunately, you're too late. My bones are about to turn into ashes. There's a time difference in this place. Gohan glanced at the small room. I thought that the time here is constant. No matter when I come, it's just a matter of time to you. You're really smart. You actually guessed that the time here is constant. The old man looked surprised for the first time. However, constant is eternal. Once a point of time is fixed, that point of time will be fixed here forever. Unless the entire world is destroyed, I'll stay here forever. So, whether it's the past or the future, I've waited for you for a very long time. Then, according to what you said, I'll be trapped here forever. Gohan blinked. No, others will be trapped here forever, but you're different. You're key. If you can unlock the lock, you can leave this place. Otherwise, everyone will be trapped in this world of constant time with you, the old man said. So I'm that important. Gohan nodded thoughtfully. Then, why did you tell Lu Bang that he could leave this place as long as he gathered 6 people? Are you lying to him? I've never lied to him. The old man said calmly. If he didn't live with the thought of gathering 6 people, how could he have met you and brought you down here? Everything in the world is predetermined. Haven't you already figured this out? Yes, I've figured it out, but I'm afraid it'll still be a little difficult to learn and apply it, Gahan said with a sigh. Don't worry, you'll get used to it sooner or later. This world is really boring, especially when you're around. This world is even more boring. Guhan was able to understand what the old man was talking about when he was bickering with him earlier. However, the old man's words completely confused Gahan. Why did this world become boring without him? Forget it. You will naturally understand the matter. Now, this old man should get your friends out. Otherwise, without them, you will also feel bored. The old man flicked the ashes of the cigarette in his hand. The small door of the library suddenly opened, and 6 figures rolled in together. When they saw the world in front of them clearly, they found that Gahan had arrived 1 step ahead of them. They could not help but look a little surprised. However, when they thought about the strange timeline of this world, the surprise disappeared without a trace. Great ancestor, I've gathered everyone. Shouldn't you tell us how to leave this place? After seeing the old man, Lu Bang immediately squatted beside him with a flattering smile. He massaged the old man's legs as he asked excitedly, Who said that everyone is here? The old man glanced at Lu Bang indifferently. I told you to find 6 people, but you brought 7. Now that there's 1 more person, who should I kick out? I really can only send 6 people out. Lu Bang suddenly became extremely embarrassed. He could not afford to offend Gahan, but Jojo Doma and the others were bound together. If he suggested that they leave, he was afraid that they would suggest kicking him out instead. Why don't we vote? I'll send whoever has the most votes back. The old man said lightly. Let me go back. I don't need to leave here. Lu Qingping was the first to stand out, her tone extremely firm. Good girl. Looking at Lu Qingping's determined back, Gahan slightly praised her. He knew what Lu Qingping was thinking. At the same time, Lu Qingping also knew that if 7 people were to vote, then Jojo Doma and the others would undoubtedly stand together. They would definitely vote for Gahan. However, the real world was in an extreme crisis. Guhan absolutely could not continue to be trapped in this seamless corridor. So Lu Qingping simply decided to sacrifice herself and send Gahan away. Don't talk too much. Let the old man continue. Gahan pressed Lu Qingping's shoulder and continued. You can't go. I won't leave you here. You are already my woman, Gahan's woman. I, Gahan, have never had a tradition of letting my woman stay behind and suffer. Gahan's voice was not soft, so his words clearly reached Artoria's ears. Especially the phrase, you are my woman. It made Artoria's expression even more unsightly. Don't worry. Although the voting rights are in your hands, the 7 of you are not the real candidates. There are only 4 real candidates. The old man said slowly. Chapter 1406. Why are there only 4 candidates? What's so different about us? Lu Bang asked as he massaged the old man's legs obediently. Of course, because 4 of them are fated to leave this place, I have to send them back. As for the remaining 4, I'm not sure what their fates are. I'll leave it to you to decide for yourselves, the old man said. The old man said. His words caused everyone to hold their breaths. Who exactly were the 4 people who were destined to leave? This was something that everyone was extremely curious about. That's not right. There are only 7 of us, but 4 of them are fated to leave. Plus the 4 candidates. Doesn't that mean there are 8 of us here? Lu Bang suddenly screamed. He realized that the total number of people did not seem right. Could it be that one more person would jump down later? This small book has a total of 6 pages. Only one name can be written on each page. The 6 people whose names are written on the whole book are the ones who can leave this time. The first 4 pages are already filled with names. If you don't believe me, you can open it and see whose name is written on it. The old man took out a thin book from the drawer and threw it on the table as he spoke. I don't know if I'm inside. Lu Qingping crossed her arms over her chest and muttered to herself nervously. Sigh, I don't know if you're in it, but I'm sure that these 2 people and this person's names are in it. Gahan said leisurely. At the same time, his fingers tapped on Jojo Doma, Misaka Makoto, and Chidu Isuzu. Lu Bang quickly moved to Gahan's side and tugged at Gahan's sleeve nervously. Hey, brother, why are you so sure that the 3 of them are on the list? Following Lu Bang's question, the others also looked at Gahan. They were also curious as to how Gahan could be so sure that 3 of the 4 people were on the list. Don't look at me. Look at the book. Gahan said calmly. Allow me. Lu Bang was the first to rush forward and quickly flipped to the first page of the book. Lu Bang's eyes widened when he saw the name written on it. The others immediately gathered around and hugged Misaka Makoto excitedly as they cheered. Makoto, you're the best. You can leave now. That's great. Indeed, Misaka Makoto's name was written on the first page of the booklet, just like what Gahan had said earlier. No, if you can't leave, I won't go with you. Misaka Makoto said as she held Jojo Dangma's hand tightly. Silly girl, what are you talking about? You must leave this place. This is a must. The 2 of them suddenly fell into a situation where they were feeding dog food to others. My name must be on the 2nd page. My name must be on the 2nd page. Lu Bang could not wait to turn to the 2nd page, and then he looked straight at Gahan. It seemed that Gahan was right again this time. I can also leave. Makoto, I can also leave. When Jojo Dangma saw his name written on the 2nd page, he could no longer suppress his excitement. He hugged Misaka Makoto's head and began kissing her passionately. Don't act like an idiot. Misaka Makoto was embarrassed. Then, without any hesitation, an electric current hit Jojo Daima's stomach. Jojo Daima was sent flying. He knelt on the ground and trembled with numbness. Could it be that Chidu Isuzu's name is really on the 3rd page? Lu Bang's hand trembled as he turned to the 3rd page. Once again, it proved that Guhan's prediction was correct. Chidu Isuzu's name was indeed written on the 3rd page. I can leave too. Chidu Isuzu touched her head in disbelief. She was not very sure how she became the person who was destined to leave. The fourth page must be my name. My name must be on the fourth page. There is only one person left who is destined to leave. Liu Bang screamed as he used the last of his strength to turn to the fourth page. As a result, he was dumbfounded the moment he saw the fourth page. Ancestor, are you kidding me? The fourth page is clearly empty. There's no name on it. Why do you say that there's a fourth person? Liu Bang opened the book and showed it to everyone. Everyone could see clearly that, just as Liu Bang had said, the entire fourth page was empty. There was not a single person's name on it. I never lied. The old man shook the ash in his hand again. However, what was surprising was that after such a long time, the Honkashin cigarette in the old man's hand was still the same length as when Gahan first came in. It was as if the cigarette would not shorten after being lit. The fourth person does exist. It's just that he doesn't have a name now. I can't write it down. The old man's words immediately caused everyone to ponder. What did he mean by that? What did he mean by he didn't have a name now? The 7 people present were all famous fellows. Could it be the 8th person who had yet to reveal himself? But even if it was the 8th person, he should be someone with a name. It must be my name. The fourth person must be my name. Liu Bang suddenly took out a pen from his pocket and was about to write his name on the small book. The old man did not stop him and let Liu Bang place the tip of the pen on the book. However, something strange happened. The moment Liu Bang's pen touched the book, the whole pen disappeared without a trace, as if it had never existed. Liu Bang was also startled by the situation in front of him. Then he quickly put his hand into the dimensional pocket again. After a while, he took out a pen exactly the same as the one before, or rather, it was the same pen that he had taken out just now. Your Majesty Liu Bang, give up. This book is not something we can write. Jojo Doma on the side persuaded. Liu Bang then put the book back on the table weakly. Then, he looked at the old man pitifully and said, Ancestor, please tell us how to vote for the remaining 2 places. Hurry up and decide. That won't do. The old man shook his head. As you said just now, there are actually 8 people who are going to leave. Now, there are only 7 people here. Only when the 8th person appears can the voting begin. Before that, you have to wait here patiently. You can read the books here until the 8th person appears. By the way, for each of you, there is a book in this bookshelf that is a forbidden book. If you take a look at this book, you will immediately enter the world of the book and will never be able to return to reality. You will never be able to come out, just like those who came here before. You have to think carefully before reading that book. After saying this, the Honkashin cigarette in the old man's hand instantly extinguished. At the same time, he leaned back on the rocking chair and closed his eyes. Then, he started snoring softly. He had actually fallen asleep. Oh my God, how long do we have to wait? Liu Bang scratched his scalp in pain. The opportunity to leave this place was clearly in front of him, but he still had to be trapped here. This feeling was really unbearable for Liu Bang. Makoto, let's go read. It's really boring to wait like this. Jojo Doma and Misaka Makoto were probably the most relaxed and happy among them. After knowing that they were destined to leave, the 2 of them completely let go of the burden in their hearts and read happily. I'll go too. Chindo Isuzu followed closely behind. Liu Bang was, after all, an emperor who was proficient in the study of thick black. After experiencing extreme depression, he quickly recovered his normal mental state and then rushed into the bookshelf. Can I go take a look? Liu Qingping looked at Gahan expectantly. Guhan nodded, and she went directly into the bookshelf. Thus, only Gahan and Artoria were left standing outside the bookshelf in the library. Aren't you going to take a look? Guhan walked to Artoria and asked. Yes. Artoria did not wait for Gahan to come closer and directly walked into the library. Guhan smiled and followed her. Romance of the Three Kingdoms, The Legend of the Condor Heroes, King Lear, Girls Route, the amorous old urchin, Digimon, Homer's epic, The Secret Agent. Guhan's gaze swept across the few rows of bookshelves and the few scattered books on the bookshelf. He found that these books range from classical classics to some light novels. Many different categories of books were placed on the same bookshelf. There was no order to the placement of the books at all, as if they were just randomly stuffed together. Wait, isn't this book? Guhan's gaze suddenly stopped on more than 20 books placed side by side. These books all had the same name printed on their spines, the catalog of forbidden magic books. It looked like a whole set of novels. Next to this set of the catalog of forbidden magic books was another set of books, the scientific super electromagnetic gun. Guhan pulled out the first novel in the series labeled the catalog of forbidden magic books 1, and was surprised to find that Dangma Jojo's face was printed on the novel's catalog. He flipped open the novel and roughly skimmed through it. He found that this was actually a novel written by Dangma Jojo. Could it be that this book is the original world of the two-dimensional world where Dangma Jojo originally came from? Guhan's hands could not help but tremble when he saw this. He immediately flipped to the scientific super electromagnetic gun 1. Unlike the pure novel, the catalog of forbidden magic books, the scientific super electromagnetic gun 1 was a manga. From the first page, it could be seen that the protagonist of this manga was Misaka Mikoto. Oh my god, isn't this my story? Not far away, Chidu Isuzu held a novel tightly and exclaimed. The cover of the novel in her hand was printed with a girl who looked exactly like her. The title of the novel was The Savior of Gansheng Shining Amusement Park. Chapter 1407. Why? Why am I on the cover of this book? And the princess is here too. What's written in this book? Chidu Isuzu exclaimed in his heart, and then instinctively wanted to open the cover of the book, wanting to see what was written in it. However, just as Chidu Isuzu's fingers were about to flip the cover open, a man's hand covered Chidu Isuzu's hand. What are you doing? Chidu Isuzu was shocked. He looked at Guhan nervously and asked. Chidu Isuzu thought that he was going to be molested by Guhan. I suggest that you don't open this book. Although this is just my guess, I feel that this book is a taboo for you. If you open it, you can forget about ever leaving the seamless corridor. You'll be trapped in the world of this book for the rest of your life. After Guhan finished speaking, he immediately left Thousand Do 50 Bells, leaving Thousand Do 50 Bells alone there. Sir, are you going to leave just like that? I think it's better for you to keep that book alone. Otherwise, Chidu Isuzu might open it. Lu Qingping said anxiously. Don't worry. Guhan did not look worried at all. She'll never open that book again because she's destined to leave. Just as Guhan had predicted, Chidu Isuzu handed the book to Misaka Mikoto after a moment of hesitation. He then reminded Misaka Mikoto not to hand the book over to him no matter what he asked of her in the future. He then let out a sigh of relief and flipped through the other books. Found it. These two books are forbidden books. Misaka Mikoto and Dangma Ju also found their own copies of Forbidden Magic Book Catalog and Scientific Super Electromagnetic Gun. With Chidu Isuzu's experience, they also handed the books to Chidu Isuzu after a moment of hesitation. They also told Chidu Isuzu not to read these books. This book is mine. Liu Bang also found a novel called Chuhan Contend for Supremacy on the bookshelf. The characters printed on the cover were exactly the same as Liu Bang himself. Liu Bang also did not choose to open the book. However, unlike the previous three people, he did not hand the book to someone else for safekeeping. Instead, he held it firmly in his hand. In fact, Liu Bang wanted to put this book in his dimensional pocket, but after several attempts, the dimensional pocket could not accommodate this novel at all. He knew that this was not an ordinary book, so he gave up on other thoughts. Is this book my taboo book? Seeing that Misaka Mikoto and Chidu Isuzu had found their own taboo books, Artoria could not help but start looking for her own taboo book. In the end, she found a novel called The Legend of King Arthur on the bookshelf. However, unlike the other books that had this portrait printed on the cover, the packaging of this novel was very classical. Other than the gold stamp title on the cover, there were no other pictures. With your name on it, this must be your taboo book. There's no doubt about it. Dangma Ju and the others came over and said with certainty after looking at the title of the book, "You must not read it. If you read it, you will be sucked into the book." Liu Bang also came over and said with certainty, "Is that so?" Artoria glanced at everyone in front of her, and to everyone's surprise, she flipped open the book without hesitation. At the same time, she read the entire first page of the book, which was entirely written in English. "Miss Artoria, you—" Everyone was shocked, and then looked at Artoria nervously as if Artoria would disappear in the next second. However, a few minutes had passed, and Artoria was still standing in front of everyone. She did not seem to be sucked into the book at all. "What? Don't tell me that these books aren't forbidden books at all? You can read them as you please." Misaka Makoto muttered unhappily. She felt as if she had been tricked. She turned around and said to Chidu, Isuzu, give me our book. I want to see what's written in it." "No, I promised you that no matter what happens, I won't give you this book." Chidu Isuzu shook his head and hugged the book tightly in his arms. He was unwilling to hand it over to Misaka Makoto. "You can see that this is not a forbidden book. It's not a big deal to take a look at it. Don't worry, even if something happens, I won't blame you." Misaka Makoto kept trying to persuade him. Chidu Isuzu's attitude gradually softened after hearing Misaka Makoto's repeated requests. Just as he was about to hand the book over to Misaka Makoto, the crisp sound of a door opening exploded in everyone's ears. "Don't tell me the 8th person is here." Everyone let out such a cry of surprise in their hearts, and then looked at the position of the door. Sure enough, they saw a young figure walk in from the door, then knocked on the librarian's table hard, and said very loudly, "Hey, wake up. Why are you sleeping? You're not sleepy. What are you screaming for? You know that I'm pretending to be asleep." The old man opened his eyes unhappily and looked at the man in front of him. "Didn't you go back? Why are you here again?" "I have no choice. Didn't I miss an unlucky kid? I brought her back on purpose." As soon as the young man finished speaking, he dragged a pitiful little loli into the room. The little loli's eyes were filled with tears as she looked around the world of the library. Her eyes lit up when she saw Chidu Isuzu. She ran happily to Chidu Isuzu and said with a smile, "General Manager sis, why are you here? Aren't you supposed to look after your kid at Guanghui Amusement Park? Do we know each other?" Chidu Isuzu looked at the little loli in front of her in confusion. She was very sure that she had never seen this little loli in her previous world or this one. A little loli wearing a snowsuit and snow boots with a steel arm on her back. She looked like she was fishing. "That's strange. We often play together, and I often fish for you. How can you not know me? By the way, I have a good relationship with your daughter. We often play hide-and-seek together." The little loli continued to speak, but this made Thousand Do Isuzu feel even more inexplicable. "When did she have a child? Little girl, who are you? Who is the person who came in with you? Can you tell me?" Liu Bang, who was at the side, rolled his eyes and smiled as he moved closer to the little loli and asked, "My name is Sukbader. That person is called Fleeting Maple. He is my military governor. I am his ship's girl, also known as the Starship Girl or something." Sukbader said with her head raised. Fleeting Maple? Could he be from the Fleeting family? Liu Bang was shocked. As far as he could remember, there was no one named Fleeting Maple in the Fleeting family. However, there was nothing strange about this. He must be someone from the Fleeting family who was born after he entered the Seamless Corridor. Thinking of this, Liu Bang could not help but look at Fleeting Maple. However, Fleeting Maple was chatting with the old man and did not notice what was happening here at all. The people from the Fleeting family have always been very strange. Maybe they know something about the inside story of this world. Let me secretly eavesdrop. So, Liu Bang tiptoed to the side of the old man and Fleeting Maple, planning to eavesdrop on their conversation. However, even though Liu Bang was less than a meter away from the two, he could not hear a single word clearly. The other party's mouth was clearly jumping up and down, and their expressions were extremely rich. It was obvious that they were talking about something very interesting, but Liu Bang could not hear a single word clearly. "Sister Artoria, I didn't expect you to be here as well. What a coincidence." Sukbader and Thousand Do Isuzu chatted for a while, But after realizing that Thousand Do Isuzu did not know anything at all, he lost interest in talking to her. He looked around and saw Artoria. You even know me? Artoria also looked curiously at this cute little girl. She also did not remember seeing this child before. I know you, but not very well. When I was staying in the lake, you came by once, but you left very quickly. We only chatted for a while. Sukbader said. Unlike Thousand Do Isuzu, Artoria really wanted to talk to Sukbader. However, Sukbader seemed to be a little afraid of Artoria. After a few simple words, he timidly left Artoria's side. This time, she finally saw Gahan, who was standing by the bookshelf and looking at her with a face full of smiles. You are actually here? Sukbader was completely shocked this time. Didn't we just split up? When did you get ahead of us? You were actually a step ahead of me and the military governor. That's where you're wrong, Serene. It's already been 3 years since we parted, but it might just be an instant for you. Guhan smiled as he patted Sukbader's head. That's right. You still remember my name? You are indeed that guy from back then. Sukbader smiled sweetly. All right, didn't you go back with a Quincy fish? Where's your Quincy fish? Gahan asked curiously. The military governor said that it was not Quincy's original body. It was just a consciousness fragment that the little idiot Quincy used to tease me. It was too tiring to bring it back, so he simply put it back into the sea of this world. Maybe in the future, there will be a lot of Quincy fish in the sea. Sukbader said excitedly. Consciousness fragment. Could it be that the shipgirl's world is also proficient in using consciousness fragments? Gahan said thoughtfully. This might be the most valuable piece of information Gahan got from Sukbader. Chapter 1408. What a cute little girl. It would be great if I could give birth to such a cute little girl in the future. Lu Qingping, who was standing to the side, watched Guhan and Sukbader talk and said enviously. When Sukbader heard Lu Qingping's words, he suddenly turned his head and looked at Lu Qingping suspiciously. Then, with a look of realization, he walked to Lu Qingping's side and said, Raising a baby is very tiring. Don't trouble others in the future. What? What does this child mean? Lu Qingping was stunned for a moment. She had no idea what Sukbader was saying. At that moment, the military governor Fleeting Maple that Sukbader had mentioned finally finished talking with his father. He leisurely walked into the library and hugged Sukbader, who was talking on the ground. My little friend Serene, who are you chatting with so happily? Fleeting Maple pinched Sukbader's little nose. Sukbader moaned coquettishly and buried his little head in Fleeting Maple's arms. Stupid military governor. Did I just meet a new friend? Hello. I finally get to meet you. I'm Gahan. Thank you for the primordial violet vapor. Guhan extended his hand in front of Fleeting Maple to thank him. Although Gahan had already spoken to Fleeting Maple in the dimensional rift in the Radiance Amusement Park, this was the first time they had met face to face. Fleeting Maple was a very gentle and handsome young man. However, Gahan could sense an absolute aura and power from him. This power was something that even the current Gahan was definitely not a match for. Perhaps only the existence that I Ching mentioned, who had surpassed Jiandi, could possess such power. Could it be that Fleeting Maple was an existence that had surpassed the Emperor's sword level? Oh, you're that Gahan. I didn't expect you to be here too. It seems that I didn't give my Hong Meng immortal chi to the wrong person. You are indeed the leveler of this world. Fleeting Maple chuckled and held on to Gahan's hand. The two of them were finally able to hold each other's hands. That's where you're wrong. Back then, you said that the fleeting calendar was also a stabilizer. He also came here, but in the end, didn't he never return? He couldn't break free from his own inner demons. The old man who was sitting there suddenly replied lazily, which immediately attracted Gahan's attention. From the old man's words, could it be that Kinzu had also been here before? This was quite possible. Given Kinzu's power in the past, it was only natural that he would come to the seamless corridor. But he didn't know if Kinzu had come here before he disappeared, or if he had come here after he disappeared. But just from that sentence, it seemed that Kinzu had only come here after he disappeared. Could it be that Kinzu's whereabouts were in this seamless library? Gahan could not help but fall into deep thought. Don't think about so many useless things. Fleeting Calendar is not here. He's just a pitiful failure. You won't be able to save him before you save this world. Fleeting Maple said with a smile, as if he could see through Gahan's thoughts. Thank you. I understand. Gahan nodded. He hesitated for a moment, then asked, Then may I ask what your relationship with Kinzu is? Are you two relatives? Of course we're relatives. Fleeting Maple replied straightforwardly. Everyone with the surname Fleeting is a family. However, we're not related to each other, so we're not familiar with each other. I don't think we'll ever get to know each other that well. Why? Shouldn't two relatives get to know each other better when they meet? Gohan asked in confusion. That's what the script was supposed to be, but you took over his position, so we won't be able to get to know each other. Fleeting Maple smiled at Gahan, but his gaze caused Gahan's heart to turn cold. It was as if Gahan had stolen the position of Fleeting Calendar's stabilizer. Then can you stay behind and help our world? For example, help me defeat the Prime of Tontion. Gohan gritted his teeth. I can't do that. Fleeting Maple shook his head decisively. I came to your world as a tourist. If I help you, your world will be destroyed even faster. Saving the world is your job as the stabilizer, so you just have to work hard. Once you succeed, we'll find a place to drink. I'll treat you to the most delicious moonlight wine in our world. TSK, that taste. It's so beautiful. All right, are you leaving or not? All right, I'll be leaving now. Can I trouble you to help me find a novel called Maiden's Route? The elderly librarian began to urge Fleeting Maple to hurry Guhan up, and Fleeting Maple could only shrug. All right, I'll be leaving now. Is it this book? Fleeting Maple handed the book he was reading over to Fleeting Maple. The title of the book was Maiden Route, and the author was a guy called Blue Billows. Yes, it's this book. You've already read it. I thought that the book was too lousy, and no one would be interested in reading it. Flowing Maple sighed as he held the book in his hands. This is what saddens me the most. I clearly have more harems than you, but why can't I have as many as you? What kind of weird thing is this? Fleeting Maple's words confused Gohan. He could not understand what Fleeting Maple was talking about. Yes, since you've read it. How many chapters have you read? Did you see how I swept through the universe with a dozen or so prehistoric starship girls and changed the status of all men? Fleeting Maple asked arrogantly as he looked at Gohan. No, I just finished chapter 230 when you came. Gohan shrugged. Why don't you let me read the book for a few days? I guarantee that I'll finish it by then. Sigh, that won't do. I don't have time to wait for you. It's a pity that you're about to see me become the champion of the Human Empire's college entrance examination. I guarantee that you'll be so excited that you won't be able to sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. It's a pity that you won't have the chance to see it. Fleeting Maple said regretfully. Then, I have a question. What's the relationship between you and the last military governor of the Shipgirl world? I remember that the main character in that book is also called Fleeting Maple. Gohan asked curiously. That book. How can the main character's matter be left unfinished? Besides, didn't I make up for it? Fleeting Maple muttered shamefully. He then eagerly flipped open the Maiden Route book. The book immediately shone with a dazzling light. In the next second, both Soup Baiter and Fleeting Maple disappeared without trace. When he flipped open the Maiden Route book, the content of the story was forever fixed at chapter 231. The rest of the book was blank. Just like what Fleeting Maple had said, Gahan would never be able to read the rest of the book. That means that Fleeting Maple is actually the main character in this Maiden Route book. After Fleeting Maple disappeared, everyone gathered around and looked at the Maiden Route book in Gahan's hands in fear. Fleeting Maple used facts to prove that this Maiden Route book could really suck Yuan Ko into the story. This time, Misaka Mikoto no longer dared to ask Chidu Isuzu to read the scientific super electromagnetic gun book. Brother, is this Maiden Route book good? Liu Bang came over and asked curiously as he looked at the book in Gahan's hands. It's just a boring story about cheats indecisiveness, and chaos. You won't be able to learn anything from it. However, it's quite a good way to kill time. If you want to read it, you can read it yourself. Guhan directly threw the book to Liu Bang. Liu Bang immediately picked up the book and started reading it. Just like that, he spent a whole day reading it. When Liu Bang reached chapter 231, he suddenly let out a long howl. He threw the book on the ground with tears streaming down his face and cursed, "Mother of Asterisker, I want to read chapter 232. I feel so bad. Why? Why can't I return to the world that belongs to me after opening my book of taboo?" Artoria looked a little sad as she flipped through the Legend of King Arthur in her hands. She couldn't help but sigh softly. That's because this isn't your forbidden book. Gohan walked silently to Artoria's side and said as he looked at the Legend of King Arthur book in Artoria's hands, "Nonsense, this is clearly my story. I will never forget it," Artoria said as she touched the words on the book. "So, is the King Arthur in this book a man or a woman?" Gohan asked again. Artoria was stunned. She didn't know how to answer this question. The King Arthur in this book was, of course, a man, but she was a woman. Could it be that this book wasn't her taboo book? If so, where was the taboo book? Actually, I wanted to say this for a long time. Your name is Artoria, not King Arthur. As for where your book is, you'll have to find it yourself," Guhan said calmly as he left Artoria's side. He then quietly walked to a bookshelf with a row of plastic discs. There was a plastic box with Artoria's portrait on it. It had been opened, and the 12 discs inside were gone. This time, Fleeting Maple took the box out and hid it in an extremely secluded place. Fortunately, Artoria did not know that there was such a thing as an animated BD in this world. Otherwise, it would be really troublesome. It seems that Flowing Maple isn't the 8th person we've been waiting for. Artoria had no choice but to give up after failing to find the book that belonged to her. On the other hand, Misaka Makoto and Jojo Dangma were discussing about the 8th person. "Master, is there anything sour in your dimensional pocket? My mouth feels weird." Lu Qingping suddenly pulled on Gohan's sleeve and whispered to Gohan, "Oh, I have some plums here." Gohan handed a bag of plums to Lu Qingping. However, when the bag of plums was placed in Lu Qingping's hands, Gohan was stunned. He suddenly had an epiphany that he had never imagined before. Perhaps he knew who the 8th person was. Chapter 1409. Liu Bang was the second man to find out that Lu Qingping was pregnant. Because he was the only one who had a child among all of them, and he had many wives and children, he was very clear about how a woman would react when she was pregnant. Therefore, when he saw Lu Qingping holding a bag of plums and eating it all day long, he finally couldn't help but approach Gohan and ask, "I don't know." Gohan shook his head. "I'm not a doctor, and I don't know how to take a pulse. I don't know if she's pregnant." Gohan's words were actually false, although Gohan really did not know how to take a pulse. As long as he put Lu Qingping's body into the medical pod, all the conditions of Lu Qingping's body would be detected. At the very least, he could place Lu Qingping in his dimensional pocket and use the nanomachines to enter Lu Qingping's body. He could conduct a comprehensive examination of Lu Qingping's body and find out if Lu Qingping was pregnant. However, Guhan did not do these things because it was useless to do these things. Lu Qingping's pregnancy was something that was destined to happen. Yes, it can't be wrong. That woman, LVG, was also like this when she was pregnant. It can't be wrong. Congratulations. Your Gu family has a descendant. Liu Bang congratulated Gohan with great certainty and a smile on his face. "Thank you," Gohan responded faintly. "Actually, Brother Gohan, I thought about it for a long time just now. If your woman is really pregnant with your child, then the 8th person we're waiting for will definitely be your child." At this point, Liu Bang's eyes suddenly turned around, and he said to Gohan mysteriously, "Actually, there's another good news. I don't know if you've thought of it." "What good news?" Gohan's expression was still calm, which made Liu Bang a little uncomfortable with Gohan's reaction. However, he had no choice but to continue speaking. "Didn't the ancestors say that 4 people are destined to leave this place? But the first 3 pages have names on them, and only the fourth page doesn't have any names. Do you know why? Lu Bang kept him guessing. I don't know, Guhan said very cooperatively. That's because your child's name is written on the fourth page. Lu Bang put on a shocked expression. Think about it. There's already someone on the fourth page, but the name hasn't been written. This means that this person doesn't have a name yet. What kind of person doesn't have a name? Of course, it's the fetus in the womb that hasn't been named yet, so I'm sure that the fourth one destined to leave is definitely your child. There's no mistaking it. Is that so? Lu Bang had expected Gahan to be extremely shocked when he heard the news, but he was disappointed. Gahan did not have any special reaction after hearing it. He did not even bat an eyelid. It seemed that Lu Bang was not the only smart person. Gahan had already thought of this. So, you already knew. Looks like I spoke too much. Lu Bang said a little awkwardly. Tell me, why did you come to me and tell me all this? What's your purpose? Gahan asked Lu Bang straightforwardly. He did not want to continue playing with Lu Bang like this. I don't have any purpose. I just wanted to remind you. Lu Bang looked like he was just trying to be a good person. Well, thank you for your kindness. That's all for now. I'm going to read. Guhan said lightly, then threw Lu Bang aside, ready to flip through the next book on the bookshelf. Don't. I have something else to discuss with you. Lu Bang finally could not continue acting. He simply grabbed Gohan's arm and said very hurriedly, Say it. What do you want to say? Brother Gahan, look at it this way. Since your child is destined to leave this place, you naturally can't leave your newborn child without a father. So, I have decided that when the last two people to leave are decided, I will fully support you to leave this place so that you can reunite with your child in the real world. Lu Bang said excitedly. And then? Gohan glanced at Lu Bang's red face. And then what about the child's mother? Do you support her to leave with you? This isn't necessary. She's not an important woman anyway. She's just an ordinary human who came to inform you. It's fine if she stays here. A man doesn't have to worry about not having a wife. It's not a big deal. Lu Bang said disdainfully. This was completely in line with Lu Bang's character. Lu Bang was essentially a selfish guy. Not to mention a woman. Even if it was his own father, he would sell him when the time came. So, for Lu Bang, selling his woman, even if it was a woman who had given birth to his child, was really not a difficult decision to make. Even if I leave her here, there's still two people left. How are we going to divide the remaining quota? Gohan asked with narrowed eyes. Of course we can't let Artoria leave. Lu Bang did not say that he should leave. Instead, he said that he could not let Artoria leave. As for the reason, Lu Bang, of course, had his reasons. Think about it. Artoria is already angry at you for being a playboy. If she finds out that you have a child now, she will definitely go crazy with anger. If she leaves here, she will definitely find ways to harm you and your child. Brother Gahan, you are very capable, but you can only be a thief for 1,000 days. How can you guard against a thief for 1,000 days? If you're not careful, your child might be harmed by that angry woman. So, why don't you let her stay here? That way, your child will be completely safe, and you can also raise your child without any worries. How great would that be? Lu Bang said, patting Guhan's shoulder hard. Good brother, I'm doing this for your sake. After hearing Lu Bang's words, Guhan showed an indifferent expression. Why, brother, do you have other ideas? Lu Bang asked nervously. Yes, and it happens to be the opposite of you. Gahan smiled. Taking care of a child is not something we men should do. Children should be taken care of by women. And I believe that as long as I am willing to sacrifice myself for her, not only will Artoria not harm my child, but she will also take care of my child with Lu Qingping. This is a chance for the three of us to reconcile. So, I think it's better to let us two men stay in the library and give the remaining 2 opportunities to these 2 women. You're crazy? How could you say such a thing? Lu Bang immediately pushed Gahan away, looked at Gahan in disbelief, and said, Brothers are like hands and feet, and women are like clothes. With such abilities, after we leave, the 2 of us can work together to achieve great things in this world. When that time comes, It will not be impossible for us to unify the world and annex the human race in Yuan-Ko. But you are obsessed with love and abandon the great cause of the world. You're not a real man at all. If a man can't even protect his own woman, then what kind of man is he? Gohan shook his head. Women are nothing. Look at the river of history. Those who loved women were Xia Jia, Shang Zhou, Li Ho, and Chun Ho. Which one of them didn't love women more than their country? You could be considered a good man, right? What did such a good man look like in history? He was just a muddle-headed and tyrannical ruler. So, brother, listen to me. A man can only be a real good man if he can pull down the skyscraper and sail the world. Women are just decorations in life. Later generations will only care about whether you stand at the top of the world, but they won't care how many women's corpses are under your feet. Besides, didn't you say that the whole world is in a crisis? Aren't your human race going to perish? If you don't come out of seclusion, then the human race will have no choice but to perish. The whole world is waiting for you to save it, brother. Don't let the whole world down, Liu Bang said passionately. His voice also aroused the curiosity of the others present, and they all focused their attention on Liu Bang and Gohan. Hey, Gohan, thought that I was invincible in the world, but today I was enlightened by your words. You are right. This world is what I need to do. I really can't be tied down by a few women. With a look of sudden realization, Gohan did not even have time to put down the book in his hand and directly hugged Liu Bang's shoulders. Good brother, I knew you would come to your senses, Liu Bang also said very excitedly. Then he saw his body turn into light, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of Gohan, and there was no trace of him anymore. In the next second, a book fell to the ground out of thin air with a thud. The cover of the book was written with the words "The Legend of Chu Han." Sorry, you seem to have forgotten this point. For a king, every man for himself will be destroyed by heaven and earth. Gohan sighed, then helplessly threw the open book in his hand on the bookshelf beside him. The book was closed again, and the two words of the book's title were revealed. These two words were Records of the Grand Historian. Poor Liu Bang did not know that the forbidden book that really belonged to him was not the legend of Chu Han. The forbidden book that belonged to him had been in Gohan's control as soon as he entered the library. As for why Gohan's forbidden book was Records of the Grand Historian and not Legend of Chu Han, the reason was very simple. The reason was simple. The Legend of Chu Han was actually a novel adapted from a TV series. How could a TV series possibly depict a hero like Liu Bang? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.